Throughout history, humans have built incredible structures, but some defy explanation. From massive stone circles in Scotland to underground cities in Turkey, these 23 ancient sites reveal engineering, planning, and knowledge that seem almost impossible for their time. How were they built? Why were they made with such precision? And what secrets might they still hold? This video takes you to monuments that challenge what we think we know about our ancestors, revealing mysteries that have puzzled archaeologists for centuries. Each site tells a story written in stone, earth, and hidden passageways, inviting you to step closer to the unknown and decide for yourself how or why these extraordinary structures exist. Gobekli Tepe, Turkey. High on a limestone ridge in southeastern Turkey lies a site that has overturned everything scholars once thought they knew about human history. This place is called Gobekli Tepe, and to walk among its stone pillars is to step into a mystery more than 11,000 years in the making. The site is older than the pyramids, older than Stonehenge, and even older than the first known cities. Its existence forces us to question when and how civilization began. When German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt began excavating the area in 1994, he uncovered massive carved stones arranged in circles. Each circle contained towering pillars in the shape of a T, some rising more than 16 feet high and weighing many tons. These were not scattered or natural rocks. They had been deliberately carved, placed upright, and arranged with care. What struck Schmidt most was not only their size, but their age. Radiocarbon dating showed Gobekli Tepe was built around 9,600 BC, thousands of years before farming communities or permanent villages were thought to exist. The carvings on the pillars only deepen the mystery. Animals from every corner of the ancient landscape appear here. Foxes, boars, vultures, lions, snakes, and scorpions. Some of the carvings seem almost alive, leaping from the stone with a vitality that has survived millennia. There are abstract shapes too, including repeating patterns that hint at symbolic or spiritual meaning. These designs suggest that whoever built Gobekli Tepe was not only skilled with tools, but was also weaving ideas about the world into stone, ideas we can still see but no longer fully understand. The scale of the site makes it even harder to explain. The people who lived in this region at the time were hunter-gatherers, moving with the seasons and surviving on what the land offered. They had no ploughs, no domesticated animals for labour, and no metal tools, yet they somehow cut, transported, and erected pillars weighing up to 20 tons. No village remains have been found near the site, no houses or farms that might explain how such a large workforce gathered and sustained itself. The builders appear to have come together solely to create this monumental place, then left without leaving behind the traces of everyday life we would expect. Archaeologists have also noted that the site sits at a high vantage point, overlooking the surrounding plains. This position may have been chosen deliberately, allowing gatherings to be visible from far away and giving the stones a commanding presence on the horizon. The elevated location would have required people to bring heavy stone pillars uphill, making the achievement even harder to explain. The purpose of Gobekli Tepe is still unknown. Some believe it was a temple or a sacred gathering place, pointing to the animal carvings as evidence of rituals connected to hunting, death, or the cycles of nature. Others suggest it was a place of social gathering, where different groups of people came together to share in ceremonies that bound them as a community. What is clear is that it was not a village or fortress. The site seems to have been devoted entirely to symbolic or spiritual use, making it perhaps the oldest known temple complex on Earth. The way the site was preserved is as puzzling as its construction. At some point around 8000 BC, the circles of pillars were deliberately buried under thousands of tons of soil. This was not the slow work of time, but a purposeful act. The backfilling preserved the site almost perfectly, sealing the stones as if to protect them for the future. Why this was done remains unanswered. Did the builders abandon their sacred site willingly, or were they forced to leave and bury it as part of a ritual? The archaeological layers at Gobekli Tepe also reveal a story of transition. The earliest levels date to a time before agriculture was established in the region. Yet as the site continued to be used over centuries, signs of early farming and domestication appeared in nearby areas. This raises a challenging possibility that the act of building such monumental structures may have spurred people to settle, cultivate and organise their societies. Instead of farming leading to temples, Gobekli Tepe hints that temples may have led to farming. Excavations at the site are far from complete. Much of Gobekli Tepe still lies beneath the earth, waiting to be uncovered. Ground surveys suggest there are dozens more circles of pillars yet to be excavated. Each discovery has the potential to reshape the way we understand the past. Already, the findings here have forced historians to rethink the timeline of civilization, shifting back the origins of organised religious or ceremonial architecture by thousands of years. The sheer artistry of the site adds to its enigma. The carvings are not crude or tentative, they show a practiced hand. Whoever carved these stones knew how to shape hard limestone with precision and detail. Some pillars even show human-like forms, with hands carved along their side and belts etched near the base. These details suggest the builders saw the pillars not just as stones, but perhaps as representations of beings, guardians, or deities that once stood over their gatherings. What makes Gobekli Tepe especially compelling is how little we truly know. There are no written records, no legends that have survived in local folklore, and no clear link to later civilizations. It appears and disappears in the archaeological record like a vision. The site was active for nearly 1,500 years, then intentionally buried and forgotten, leaving behind only silent stones that would puzzle future generations. Standing among the excavated pillars today, one cannot escape the sense that Gobekli Tepe was meant to endure. The stones rise against the sky with quiet power, reminders of a society that somehow achieved the impossible at a time when history tells us they should not have been able to. Archaeologists continue to unearth more each year, but the central questions remain unresolved. Who were these builders? How did they accomplish their task, and why did they create such an extraordinary place, only to bury it? The answers are still hidden beneath layers of soil and time, leaving Gobekli Tepe as one of the greatest riddles ever carved in stone. Pumapunku, Bolivia. Scattered across the Bolivian highlands lies a site that feels less like an ancient ruin and more like a crime scene frozen in time. The scattered blocks of Pumapunku lie toppled across the ground, as though a great force had shattered a once carefully arranged structure. For anyone stepping onto the plateau near Tiwanaku, the scene is less about beauty and more about shock. The stones appear out of place, as if they were never meant to belong to the landscape at all. Who thousands of years ago had the knowledge to slice through stone with such impossible precision? The blocks of Pumapunku are not rough-cut slabs, but finely shaped pieces with interlocking grooves and sharp corners that suggest a mastery of design. Some weigh over 100 tons, yet the edges look so exact that a modern builder might mistake them for machine cut. The deeper the ruins are examined, the more they resemble pieces of a dismantled puzzle scattered across the earth and awaiting someone to solve them. Early Spanish chroniclers who encountered the ruins in the 16th century recorded their astonishment at the scale and craftsmanship. They noted that even in their time, local people explained Pumapunku as the work of gods rather than men, suggesting that the sense of impossibility surrounding the site is not a modern invention, but a belief stretching back centuries. Stand before one of Pumapunku's massive blocks, and the surfaces feel like a silent accusation. Each face of stone is too smooth, each line too crisp, to have been shaped by the stone hammers and copper tools often credited to ancient builders. The famous H-shaped blocks, in particular, look less like relics of hand carving and more like prefabricated components of a larger, highly engineered design. Their identical measurements, repeating forms, and seamless cuts raise the unsettling question of whether knowledge has been lost to time, or whether we are overlooking a method hidden in plain sight. On one page of the case file, experts argue that the builders were part of the Tiwanaku culture, which thrived in the region over 1,000 years ago. They propose that stone tools and simple methods, combined with patience, could have created these forms. On another page, however, the evidence resists this explanation. The sheer size of the blocks, some transported from quarries miles away, defies simple accounts of manpower and primitive leverage. The records of the Tiwanaku leave no clear instructions, no detailed evidence, to close the debate. Follow the trail of evidence further, and the landscape itself complicates the case. Pumapunku lies over 12,000 feet above sea level, on a plateau where the air is thin and the climate harsh. Moving massive stones across such terrain without wheels, iron tools, or beasts of burden strains the imagination. Even if hundreds of workers laboured together, the coordination needed to transport and place such stones with accuracy remains a puzzle that refuses neat answers. Geological studies confirm that some blocks came from quarries more than 10 miles away, raising further doubts about how they were transported to such an unforgiving altitude. Every attempt at reconstruction, whether on paper or through modern experiments, highlights the same gaps. Imagine tracing the grooves with your fingers, and the mystery deepens with every touch. Some stones display drill holes that align perfectly, as though designed for pegs or metal clamps. Others show channels carved so smoothly that even metal tools today would leave behind traces of unevenness. If the builders worked with stone hammers alone, their skill borders on the unbelievable. If they had access to something more, the nature of that tool would have been erased from the archaeological record. Either way, the stones preserve an enigma that no theory fully explains. Strangely, some researchers have reported unusual magnetic anomalies in certain stones at Pumapunku. Compasses behave erratically near a few blocks, as though the material itself retains traces of forces we do not yet fully understand. Whether caused by natural mineral content or something more deliberate, these irregularities add another layer to the mystery and keep the debate alive. Turn to the surrounding ruins of Tiwanaku, and the puzzle only grows larger. Temples, statues, and intricate carvings point to a culture capable of great feats, yet Pumapunku stands apart in its complexity. While Tiwanaku art is rich in symbolism and design, these blocks suggest something more practical, almost industrial in their execution. The two sites are linked, but Pumapunku refuses to fit neatly within the same framework. It is as if the builders briefly held knowledge that surpassed their age, only for it to vanish without a trace. Looking at aerial surveys, archaeologists have noticed that parts of the layout align in ways that suggest careful planning rather than random placement. The foundations appear to have been set with geometric intention, echoing patterns found in other ancient ceremonial centres. This hint of a larger design contrasts sharply with the present chaos of toppled stones, making it difficult to imagine how the original structure must have looked. As investigators of history sift through the evidence, each theory begins to contradict another. Some argue that earthquakes or natural disasters tore the structure apart, scattering the stones. Others claim that what we see now was never completed, a grand project abandoned mid-construction. But neither view satisfies the sharp angles and engineered shapes staring back from the ground. The blocks resist simple labels like unfinished or destroyed. Instead, they appear like remnants of a plan we can no longer read, a message written in stone with half the words missing. Traces of incomplete carving on a few stones suggest that the builders may have been interrupted mid-work, leaving behind a frozen glimpse into their process. Consider the atmosphere of the site today, and the mystery becomes almost tangible. The air is thin, the sky feels endless, and the stones rest in silence, weathered but unbroken in their perfection. Visitors often speak of awe, not just at the scale but at the strangeness of it all. The ruins feel heavy with questions, as though they are watching the investigators rather than the other way around. Every photograph, every measurement, every analysis captures only fragments, never the whole. Even after centuries of exposure to wind, rain and sun, the sharpness of the cuts has hardly dulled, defying expectations of how stone typically erodes at such heights. The trail runs cold here in the Andes, leaving Pumapunku stamped with the same verdict every investigator dreads, unresolved. Baalbek's megalithic platform, Lebanon. Rising out of the Bekaa Valley, stones the size of railway cars appear stacked as though giants had paused mid-task. The platform of Baalbek is no ordinary ruin. It rises from the earth with a weight that defies imagination, its colossal blocks resting silently in the sun. Unlike crumbled walls or scattered fragments, these stones remain set in their places, still commanding awe after thousands of years. Some of these blocks weigh over 800 tons, dwarfing anything known from other ancient sites. To stand beside one is to feel dwarfed, reduced to an ant before an immovable mountain. The sheer size alone makes the platform one of the greatest engineering riddles of antiquity. At Baalbek, weight is not a number on a page, but a force that humbles anyone who comes close enough to touch the surface of the stones. Among the most striking features is the trilithon, 3 massive stones set with uncanny precision into the western retaining wall. Each one is over 60 feet long and rests perfectly aligned, as though they were carefully measured by modern machinery. Their placement is not haphazard or rough, but deliberate and exact. raising the unsettling question of how they were lifted to such height and arranged with such accuracy. Early Greek and Roman historians wrote of Heliopolis, the city that grew around Baalbek, yet none offered a clear explanation for the megalithic base itself. Their silence on the origin of the platform makes it even more baffling, as if the stones were already ancient and mysterious by the time their pens described the temples above. How could ancient builders have dragged such weights across uneven ground? The quarries lie at least half a mile from the site, and moving even a single block would have required a level of coordination that seems nearly impossible without advanced tools. No pulleys, no cranes, and no wheels have been found in connection with the site. Yet the trilithon rests there still, as though the builders had harnessed some knowledge now long vanished. Look closely at where the stones meet, and the joins are so tight that even a knife blade cannot slide between them. The craftsmanship hints at methods of cutting and setting stone that rival modern engineering, with no mortar holding them in place, and yet no sign of shifting after thousands of years. Not far from the main platform rests the so-called Stone of the Pregnant Woman, a monolith still half buried in its quarry. It is even larger than the trilithon blocks, estimated to weigh more than 1,000 tons. Later surveys revealed other enormous stones nearby, some rivaling or surpassing its weight, suggesting that Baalbek's builders were not merely experimenting but working with consistency at a scale few civilizations have ever attempted. The presence of unfinished blocks raises another question. Were they abandoned due to the impossibility of transport, or was there once a method that has been forgotten? In the quarry, unfinished blocks reveal tool marks that spark debate among scholars. Some argue they show the use of chisels and levers, while others insist the surfaces are too smooth and even, suggesting techniques we cannot yet replicate with certainty. These remnants provide rare glimpses into the process, but they deepen the mystery more than they solve it. Stories whispered through centuries claim the structure was built by giants or commanded by Solomon himself. Local traditions long described the platform as a place touched by gods, too massive to be explained by human hands alone. For those who lived in its shadow, the stones carried not just weight but mystery, inspiring tales of divine construction that blurred the boundary between myth and memory. Later, Roman architects crowned the site with grand temples, but their work sat atop a foundation they never created. The Temple of Jupiter, the Temple of Bacchus, and the Temple of Venus all rose on the megalithic platform, transforming Baalbek into one of the grandest sanctuaries of the Roman Empire. Yet even Rome, with all its engineering brilliance, chose not to dismantle or replicate the enormous stones. They simply built on top of them, leaving the older mystery untouched. Explorers of the 19th century, drawn by the romantic fascination with ruins, described Baalbek with a mix of awe and bewilderment. Scholars such as Robert Wood, who published detailed studies of the site in the 1750s, carefully measured the stones and marvelled at their unmatched size. Their early surveys introduced Baalbek to a wider European audience, yet they also emphasised the unanswered questions that still linger today. Who placed these blocks, and with what means? Lebanon lies in a region prone to earthquakes, yet the megalithic platform has endured for millennia with minimal disruption. While temples above have suffered collapse and rebuilding, the massive stones remain largely unmoved, as though their sheer weight or some hidden knowledge of placement allowed them to resist forces that toppled everything else. Engineers today admit that moving such blocks would demand extraordinary equipment and planning. Heavy-duty cranes, reinforced transport vehicles, and specialised lifting systems would be required to even attempt such a feat in modern times. This reality only sharpens the puzzle. If it would strain contemporary technology, how did ancient builders achieve it with tools that should have been far more limited? Each attempt to reconstruct the process only underscores the vast gap between what we expect and what was clearly accomplished. For pilgrims, poets and conquerors alike, Baalbek became less a ruin than a wonder etched into human memory. Its massive stones impressed travellers from across the Mediterranean, earning it a place in both ancient accounts and medieval chronicles. The site was never forgotten, its power drawn not just from its size but from the lingering sense that it represented something beyond human achievement. Even in ruins, Baalbek remained a stage where history itself seemed to perform. Yet beneath the sun of Lebanon, the oldest stones remain immovable, as if guarding a secret no civilization has yet unlocked. Great Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe. In the rolling hills of southeastern Zimbabwe, stone walls rise like a ripple frozen in time. their pale granite curves around the landscape, enclosing open spaces that once echoed with life. No mortar binds these walls together, and yet they have stood for centuries resisting weather and time with a balance so exact it borders on the impossible. Unlike fortresses bound by cement, these walls rely only on gravity and the skill of their builders. Granite blocks were carefully split from outcrops, shaped by hand, and stacked with precision into patterns of arcs and circles. Some walls run more than 30 feet high, yet they stand without reinforcement, held only by the steady weight of their own stones. The quiet strength of this method still confounds modern builders who marvel at its durability. From the crest of the hill complex, the valley spreads wide, dotted with remains of smaller stone circles and pathways that hint at a once thriving settlement. The elevated ruins command the landscape below, suggesting that leaders or guardians once lived there, watching over the communities in the plains. The view itself becomes part of the mystery, for it seems designed not only for defense but also to impress anyone approaching from the valley floor. The great enclosure stretches nearly 800 feet in circumference, a massive oval of stone that dwarfs the smaller structures around it. Its walls rise in sweeping arcs, some more than 30 feet tall and 15 feet thick at the base, tapering as they climb skyward. To walk beside them is to be surrounded by silence and shadow, as though the stones themselves hold memories of forgotten gatherings and ceremonies. At the heart of the enclosure stands a towering conical structure, solid and unbroken, without openings or passages. Its meaning has sparked debate for over a century. Some see it as a granary, a storehouse of wealth and survival, while others imagine it as a symbol of power or a ritual marker. The tower offers no answers, only the certainty that it was placed with care and purpose, central to the story of the people who built it. Excavations have uncovered glass beads, porcelain fragments, and Arab coins scattered among the ruins. These finds speak of a city once connected to faraway places across the Indian Ocean, trading with merchants from Arabia, Persia, and even China. Great Zimbabwe was not a forgotten outpost, but a vibrant hub, sending ivory, gold, and cattle outward in exchange for luxuries that travelled thousands of miles to reach its walls. When Europeans first studied the site in the late 19th century, they dismissed the idea that Africans could have built it. Instead, myths of foreign architects were invented, crediting Phoenicians, Arabs, or even biblical figures with their creation. This refusal to recognize African achievement shaped early narratives, overshadowing the truth with prejudice. The stones themselves stood as evidence against such denial, but voices at the time refused to listen. Decades of archaeology have since restored Great Zimbabwe to its rightful place in history. Excavations showed continuity with local Shona traditions, and radiocarbon dating traced its peak between the 11th and 15th centuries. Here was the heart of a powerful kingdom, its influence stretching across southern Africa. The city's name itself, Zimbabwe, means stone houses, and from it the modern nation drew its identity, reclaiming a legacy once denied. Still, questions linger about how so vast a site was organised and what ceremonies filled its courtyards. The complexity of its layout suggests a society with a clear hierarchy, advanced planning, and skilled labour. Yet, without written records, the voices of its builders remained silent, leaving only the patterns of stone as clues. What beliefs guided their hands, and what stories once echoed off these walls? Despite its scale and sophistication, no evidence of written language has been found within Great Zimbabwe. This absence sharpens the mystery, for without inscriptions, scrolls, or carvings, the voices of its rulers and builders remain hidden. Historians can only piece together the city's story through its architecture and artifacts, leaving much of its history suspended in silence. Legends among the Shona people tell of spirits bound to the ruins, guardians of the place who never left. Oral traditions weave tales of rulers who wielded both worldly power and spiritual authority, their strength embodied in the stones they commanded. Such stories, passed down through generations, keep the site alive in memory, giving weight to mysteries that archaeology alone cannot unravel. Centuries of weathering have softened the edges of the walls, but the core remains intact, standing through storms and shifting eras. The endurance of the construction raises an unspoken challenge. If stone laid without mortar can last so long, what secrets did the builders know about balance, placement, and durability that modern architects might overlook? The silence of the ruins seems to guard that answer carefully. Patterns of chevron and herringbone still mark sections of the walls, geometric designs woven into stone. These decorations are more than ornaments, they suggest a symbolic language, perhaps connected to status, ritual, or identity. The presence of such patterns transforms the ruins from mere walls into expressions of culture, crafted with intention beyond utility. Even in its decline, Great Zimbabwe continued to spark wonder. Portuguese traders in the 16th century heard rumours of a stone city inland, but their accounts were vague and filled with exaggeration. The ruins slipped into myth outside the region, while within it they remained sacred ground, avoided by some out of respect or fear of disturbing what was left behind. Today, visitors walk among the walls much as ancient residents once did, tracing paths that wind between shadowed corridors and open courtyards. The stones radiate an atmosphere both grand and haunting, as though the builders intended not only to shape a city, but also to speak to the future. To stand within the great enclosure is to feel both connected and separated, close to a story whose words have been lost. The very name of the modern nation, Zimbabwe, was chosen to honour these stone ruins. This act of reclaiming binds past and present, linking contemporary identity to the achievements of ancestors once denied recognition. The stones do not only stand as relics of a lost era, but as symbols that continue to shape the story of a people. But the stones of Great Zimbabwe refuse to give away all their secrets, leaving behind an enduring silence that feels as intentional as the walls themselves. The Hypogeum of Hal Saflieni, Malta. It began not with a grand excavation, but with a simple accident in 1902 when workers cutting cisterns for a new housing project in Paola struck into limestone and revealed an opening no one expected. What looked at first like a small cavity soon gave way to a vast underground structure. Authorities quickly realised that this was no ordinary cave but something human-made, an ancient labyrinth carved into stone and hidden for centuries beneath the island of Malta. At the first level, archaeologists uncovered chambers that resembled tombs, lined with bones and pottery. The skeletal remains suggested the site had once been used as a burial ground, while small carved figures hinted at rituals whose meaning had long since slipped into obscurity. Thousands of individuals had been interred here, their presence turning the space into something closer to a city of the dead than a simple tomb. Deeper inside, faint traces of red ochre still cling to the walls, ghostly remnants of painted designs. The spirals and swirling patterns are unlike anything else found in Maltese prehistory, raising questions about whether they represented cosmic symbols, spiritual visions, or something entirely unknown. To stand in these dim passages is to realise that colour once saturated the walls, transforming the underground chambers into a painted sanctuary. The most curious chamber, known today as the Oracle Room, presents a mystery that has fascinated researchers for decades. Its walls curve with deliberate precision, and when a human voice speaks inside, the sound reverberates throughout the entire complex. A single phrase can echo in deep, resonant tones, amplifying as though the stone itself were alive. Modern tests confirm that the room's acoustics are tuned to a frequency that resonates with the human chest, leading to speculation about chants, ceremonies, or altered states induced by sound. Another chamber, smaller yet equally haunting, has ceilings painted with red spirals that overlap like waves. Some scholars see this as a representation of cycles of life and death, while others believe they might echo celestial movements or visions from dreams. The persistence of these motifs across multiple chambers suggests they carried profound meaning to the builders, but no written record has ever explained them. The silence of the site forces interpretation to rely on fragments and imagination. Beneath one chamber's floor, archaeologists uncovered small carved figurines, some of which depict reclining female forms with exaggerated features. These statues resemble fertility icons found elsewhere in Malta, suggesting the Hypogeum may have been linked to wider island traditions centered on life, death, and renewal. Their placement underground strengthens the impression that this was a place where symbolic cycles were enacted in stone. What troubles researchers most is not only what has been preserved, but also what has vanished. Early excavations documented thousands of skeletons, but when later studies revisited the site, the remains had largely disappeared. Reports mention elongated skulls and unusual bone structures, yet most of these specimens cannot now be accounted for in any museum collection. Whether they were lost, destroyed, or hidden, their absence has left a gap that shadows every modern investigation. The Hippogeum's construction itself raises questions that seem almost insurmountable. The chambers were carved directly into solid limestone with remarkable precision, yet the builders had only stone tools at their disposal. Passageways curve smoothly, ceilings arch gracefully, and ventilation shafts connect distant rooms, showing an advanced understanding of both engineering and design. Without metal, wheels, or modern lighting, the labour required to create such a place is difficult to comprehend. Traces of carefully cut stairways and smooth thresholds hint that movement through the Hippogeum was choreographed. Each descent feels deliberate, as if those entering were guided on a structured journey into deeper levels of ritual experience. The layout appears less accidental than intentional, as though designed to lead participants from the world above into a realm set apart from ordinary life. Light plays an unusual role in the site's atmosphere. The Hippogeum is almost entirely cut off from natural illumination, yet narrow shafts allow occasional rays of sun to fall into certain areas at specific times of year. Some researchers believe these alignments were intentional, designed to connect the underworld of the dead with the cycles of the sky above. The blend of darkness and fleeting light would have added a dramatic effect to any ceremonies held within. Animal bones discovered among the human remains add another layer to the puzzle. Some chambers contained collections of antlers and horns, placed with deliberate care beside burials. Whether these were offerings, symbols of strength, or tokens meant to guide the dead is uncertain, but their presence suggests that the rituals of the Hippogeum blended human life with the natural world in ways we can no longer fully understand. Fragments of seashells were also discovered in the chambers, carried inland from Malta's coast and placed with care among burials. Whether they represented offerings from the sea, protective charms, or simple personal belongings, their inclusion suggests that the people who built the Hippogeum drew connections between land, ocean, and the underworld. This blending of natural elements reveals a belief system that extended far beyond stone walls. Whispers of folklore still cling to the site as well. Local tales speak of children disappearing in the underground passages during early explorations, wandering so far into the labyrinth that they were never found again. While official records provide little evidence to confirm these stories, the association between the Hippogeum and loss continues to echo through Maltese memory, giving the place an aura of unease that archaeology alone cannot dispel. Access to the Hippogeum is still strictly limited, even in modern times. The chambers are delicate, and human breath and movement threaten the preservation of their ancient walls. Visitors are limited in number, and many rooms are off limits entirely, their secrets shielded not only by time but also by necessity. This limited access ensures that much of the site remains unseen, even by those who study it, keeping the deepest corners in perpetual mystery. Each descent into the Hippogeum reveals not only the ingenuity of its creators, but also the limitations of our understanding. With no written texts, no clear cultural links, and vanished remains, the structure resists every attempt to place it neatly within the framework of history. Questions about who built it, how they shaped it, and what they sought within its darkness remain unanswered. Even now, no one can say with certainty why this labyrinth was carved beneath the streets of Malta, or what truths might still be waiting in the stone chambers where echoes linger longer than the living. Yonaguni Monument, Japan. Cold water closes in as divers descend along the Yonaguni coast, where currents sweep past the southern tip of Okinawa. The deeper they go, the blue haze thickens, broken only by the occasional dart of a fish. Then the seabed appears, not as an uneven scatter of rocks, but as vast geometric plains rising like a staircase submerged by time. Out of the gloom, the seafloor sharpens into angles too clean to ignore. Blocks of sandstone seem to form terraces and platforms, their edges slicing against the natural curves of the ocean floor. It feels less like swimming across nature's work and more like approaching the ruins of a sunken city, half hidden by coral and shadow. Could currents and erosion alone carve steps that rise and fall so evenly? The monument seems to question the eye, presenting structures that appear planned rather than accidental. Its walls, some soaring over 20 feet, hold the shape of corridors and passages, places that suggest design even as the ocean insists otherwise. Some terraces stretch wider than a football field, their edges cutting in near straight lines. Divers describe walking along them as if they were ascending platforms or seating tiers in an ancient amphitheatre. To move across these underwater levels is to sense a deliberate order, one that seems to belong above the waves rather than beneath them. Geologists such as Masaki Kimura argue that these shapes cannot be dismissed as a coincidence. His surveys mapped the formation in detail, noting patterns that resemble staircases, plazas, and even what some describe as a ceremonial gateway. For Kimura, the monument represents evidence of a prehistoric culture capable of large-scale stone construction. Skeptics, however, emphasize the natural tendencies of sandstone. When layers of sediment compress and later fracture, they often split into angular patterns that mimic straight lines and steps. According to this view, the monument is not a ruin but a geological illusion, magnified by human imagination and the desire to find lost civilizations beneath the waves. Legends ripple through Yonaguni itself, carrying whispers of vanished lands swallowed by the sea. Some speak of Mu, a mythical Pacific continent said to have disappeared in a cataclysm. Others recall floods and island kingdoms lost in storms, stories that stretch back across generations. For locals, the monument feels like a physical echo of those myths, a structure that ties memory to stone beneath the ocean. Historical context deepens the puzzle. Archaeological finds across the Ryukyu Islands reveal human habitation dating back thousands of years, with tools, pottery and settlements suggesting thriving coastal communities. Could such people, living long before written records in the region, have carved terraces into sandstone cliffs? The question lingers, unsupported by direct evidence yet difficult to dismiss. Divers who brave the site often describe its scale as overwhelming. In the shifting light, they swim past walls rising like towers, passages narrowing into shadow, and broad, flat platforms that seem cut for gatherings. Some claim to see pyramid-like steps ascending in layers, as though the seafloor once supported ceremonies now silenced by the sea. Challenges make the monument difficult to study with certainty. Currents can drag divers off course, visibility may shrink to only a few feet, and the constant movement of sand alters the appearance of the site from year to year. Mapping its dimensions requires patience, repetition, and careful timing, as if the ocean itself resists efforts to capture its secret. Elsewhere in Japan, echoes of megalithic tradition invite comparison. The stone circles of northern Honshu and the Kofun burial mounds of Kyushu show that ancient societies here shaped landscapes with precision and meaning. Whether Yonaguni belongs to the same story or represents a natural trick of geology, its resemblance to deliberate design keeps the debate alive. Artifacts only complicate the picture. In nearby waters, divers and fishermen have recovered tools, pottery shards, and stone implements, though their connection to the monument is uncertain. Some researchers believe these finds prove human presence near the formation, while others argue they were washed into the area by currents from settlements elsewhere. The evidence remains tantalizing but inconclusive. The monument's discovery itself reads like a twist of fate. In the 1980s, a local diver searching for new spots to observe hammerhead sharks stumbled upon the site. What began as a recreational exploration quickly escalated into one of the most heated debates in modern archaeology. A chance encounter beneath the sea revealed a mystery still unsettled decades later. Comparisons to other underwater sites only heighten the intrigue. Off the coast of India, submerged ruins have been identified near the city of Dwarka. In the Mediterranean, ancient harbours lie beneath the waves. These examples show that seas can conceal the remains of once thriving cultures. Yet none match the stark geometric scale of Yonaguni, which seems to blur the boundary between geology and architecture. Satellite imaging and sonar mapping have been attempted, yet the site's underwater location complicates precise measurements. What looks like a staircase in one scan may resemble a natural fault line in another. Light and shadow, angle and perspective all conspire to shape what observers see, making certainty elusive. Cultural weight adds another layer. For Okinawa and the Ryukyu Islands, the monument carries a symbolic power that extends beyond science. It has become a landmark of identity, drawing divers and scholars alike. Museums and local tours embrace their mystery, even as academics argue. To the community, Yonaguni is not merely geology or legend, but a living story tied to the sea that sustains them. Speculation reaches further still. Some suggest the monument dates to the last ice age, when sea levels were far lower, placing the terraces above water. If so, entire stretches of coastline could have been occupied, leaving ruins now drowned by rising seas. Yet without definitive artifacts or inscriptions, the timeline remains shrouded in uncertainty. Mystery lingers not only in the monument's shape but in the silence that surrounds it. Unlike other archaeological sites, no clear cultural artifacts have been unearthed in direct connection to the formation itself. The terraces stand bare, stripped of decoration or evidence of habitation, as though time erased every trace except the stones themselves. Beneath the restless waves of Yonaguni, the silence of the monument endures, as if guarding an answer humanity is not yet ready to hear. Sacsayhuaman, Peru. For generations, stories told in Cusco carried echoes of Sacsayhuaman's grandeur. Local traditions remembered it as a fortress of kings, a place where divine power shaped stone and earth into walls that touched the sky. Some tales claimed the blocks were moved by the sound of a sacred horn, a reminder that in Inca memory engineering and myth often walked side by side. What remains clear is that the site was never seen as ordinary, it belonged to the realm of the extraordinary. Approaching the fortress today, the first impression is of scale. Terraces rise one after another, zigzagging in massive tiers that stretch across the hilltop above Cusco. From a distance, the walls resemble the jaws of a giant creature, their angles sharp against the highland sky. Step closer and the walls begin to reveal something more unsettling. Not simply stones, but stones so perfectly joined that even a blade of grass cannot slip between them. One block alone can weigh more than a dozen elephants, yet it sits beside its neighbours as though shaped from the same mould. Some are taller than a person, others wider than a carriage, and each one follows the exact curve of the next without mortar or cement. The stones do not match in shape, yet together they lock into place like the teeth of an immense puzzle. It is this seamless connection, more than the size of the stones themselves, that leaves visitors silent in awe. How such stones were cut, moved and set remains one of the site's most enduring mysteries. The Inca did not use the wheel for transport, nor did they have iron tools to slice through rock with the precision visible here. Yet the walls at Sacsayhuaman show joints so tight that centuries of rain, earthquakes and erosion have failed to pull them apart. Earthquakes that toppled Spanish cathedrals in Cusco left the fortress walls unmoved, as though they had been planted into the mountain itself. Spanish writers in the 16th century marvelled at the walls when they first saw them. Chroniclers such as Pedro Chiesa de Leon described the stones with disbelief, noting their size and precision as beyond anything known in Europe at the time. The Spanish conquest would lead to the dismantling of much of the complex, its stones carted into Cusco to build churches and homes. Yet even as they pulled the walls apart, the conquerors admitted they could not explain how they had been built in the first place. During the colonial period, entire sections of the fortress were torn apart to provide stone for new Spanish buildings in Cusco. The cathedral, the Church of La Merced, and countless private homes bear walls built from Sacsayhuaman's blocks, still recognizable by their irregular shapes. Even so, the larger stones proved too massive to move, ensuring that parts of the fortress would endure as silent witnesses of the past, immovable despite human effort. Parts of the process are now understood, but archaeologists continue to face unanswered questions. They point to the likely use of stone hammers to chip and shape rock, and suggest that massive labour forces dragged blocks up earthen ramps. Yet such reconstructions leave unanswered questions about how irregular stones could be set with such perfect precision. Attempts to replicate the joins have rarely produced results close to what stands on the hill above Cusco. Though written centuries ago, the accounts of Spanish chroniclers remain steeped in awe. Garcilaso de la Vega, born to an Inca noblewoman and a Spanish conquistador, described the fortress with reverence, noting that no European castle could compare. His writings blended admiration with sorrow, recognizing both the genius of its construction and the loss of the culture that created it. For many in Peru, the fortress is not just an ancient puzzle but a living symbol. Every year in June, the festival of Inti Raymi is reenacted at Sacsayhuaman, echoing ceremonies once held in honor of the sun god. Thousands gather to watch dancers and performers fill the esplanade, their movements framed by the same walls that stood during the height of the Inca Empire. The stones are not merely relics of the past, they remain part of the cultural identity of the Andes. Legends linger in the shadows of the fortress. One story recalls tunnels said to stretch from Sacsayhuaman into the heart of Cusco, passages lined with treasure and protected by spirits. While no such passage has been verified, the rumour has endured for centuries, fueled by hints of subterranean chambers discovered beneath the fortress. The idea that the walls may hide more than they reveal only deepens the air of mystery. Uncovered platforms, ritual structures and water channels point to Sacsayhuaman being far more than just a military stronghold. Some researchers argue that it served as a temple complex tied to astronomical alignments, with the zigzagging walls reflecting lightning or the teeth of a sacred puma, an animal central to Inca cosmology. Others emphasize its role as both a defensive stronghold and a sacred space, a union of practicality and spirituality unique to Inca engineering. To the Inca, landscapes were not neutral backdrops but living entities infused with spirit. Cusco itself was laid out in the shape of a puma, and Sacsayhuaman was seen as its head, commanding vision over the valley. The zigzagging walls may have echoed lightning, a force linked with both destruction and divine power, reinforcing the fortress as a place where earthly and celestial realms converged. Standing at the base of the walls, the feeling is of being dwarfed by design. The stones loom above, each one pressed against the next with silent confidence, their surfaces worn smooth by time. Touch the rock and it is cool, solid, unyielding, yet shaped in a way that feels impossibly deliberate. The fortress does not just stand, it asserts itself as though declaring the permanence of Inca knowledge even in the face of conquest. Centuries of study have brought new insights, but the essential question remains untouched. Why build in this way, with such immense effort, when smaller, simpler methods could have sufficed? The Incas clearly had the means to construct sturdy walls from smaller blocks, as seen in other parts of Cusco. Yet here, at Sacsayhuaman, they chose ambition, scale, and perfection beyond the functional need for defense. This choice lingers as part of the enigma. The walls of Sacsayhuaman still stand vast and silent, as if waiting for someone to solve their riddle. The Great Pyramid of Giza, Egypt. Silence surrounds the Great Pyramid long before a visitor steps close. Rising from the desert outside Cairo, its massive limestone blocks glow gold under the sun, making the monument seem both real and unreal at the same time. Even after thousands of years, its sharp angles and towering presence create a sense that it is more than stone, that it holds secrets older than history itself. From the very beginning, the scale of the pyramid defies expectation. Measuring about 481 feet tall when first completed, with a base that stretches more than 750 feet on each side, it was the tallest human-made structure in the world for over 3,800 years. Each of its estimated 2.3 million blocks weighs several tons, and yet they fit together with extraordinary precision. No mortar binds them, but the gaps between stones are so fine that a knife blade can barely slide between. The sheer coordination required to move, place and align them remains difficult to explain even with modern engineering. Attention naturally turns to the workers who built it. Ancient Greek historian Herodotus wrote that more than 100,000 labourers worked in shifts over 20 years to raise the pyramid. Archaeological discoveries, however, complicate this image. Excavations near the site revealed workers' villages, bakeries and cemeteries, suggesting not enslaved masses, but a skilled, well-fed workforce of thousands. Their exact methods, though, still resist full understanding. How such an immense project was completed with only copper tools, sledges and ropes is a puzzle that continues to divide scholars. Archaeological traces of their daily lives also reveal surprising organisation. Excavated remains of bread ovens, butchered cattle bones, and fish transported from distant waters suggest a logistical system as ambitious as the pyramid itself. Thousands of workers were not only fed but supplied with clothing, tools and housing on a scale that rivals small cities. Such evidence hints at planning and coordination far beyond what many expected from a Bronze Age society. Light falls across the pyramid at different angles throughout the day, and with it comes another mystery, its flawless orientation. The sides are aligned almost perfectly to the cardinal directions, deviating by only a fraction of a degree. How the builders achieved this without modern compasses or advanced instruments raises questions about their astronomical knowledge. Some suggest they used the stars, aligning construction with the North Star or specific constellations. Others believe the sun's shadows guided them. Whatever the method, the accuracy is so refined that it rivals surveying techniques used today. Inside the pyramid, the strangeness deepens. Passages slope downward into darkness. Narrow tunnels shift suddenly, and chambers appear where none are expected. The grand gallery rises to a height that makes voices echo endlessly, its polished limestone walls reflecting the faintest light. The king's chamber, made entirely of massive granite blocks transported from quarries hundreds of miles away, seems deliberately engineered for strength and resonance. The precision with which its walls and ceiling were cut and placed suggests more than utility, as if every angle and surface was chosen for a reason, now lost to time. Whispers often circle the possibility that the pyramid was designed with hidden knowledge. For centuries, explorers searched for secret rooms, convinced that the builders had left messages or treasures sealed within. In recent years, advanced scanning technologies detected unexplained voids inside the pyramid, some the size of airplanes lying beyond known chambers. What these spaces hold remains uncertain, as invasive exploration risks damaging the structure. The existence of such hidden cavities suggests the pyramid has not yet revealed all of its secrets, keeping its most tantalizing answers sealed within stone. Some of the most puzzling features are not even inside the pyramid, but beneath it. Geological surveys and limited excavations have revealed subterranean chambers and passages carved directly into the bedrock. Their purpose is uncertain. Some lead to dead ends, others open into unfinished rooms, and a few descend so steeply that they vanish into darkness. Whether these were abandoned experiments, ritual spaces, or functional parts of the pyramid's design remains unresolved. Debates about the purpose of the pyramid continue to stir. It is commonly accepted as a tomb for Pharaoh Khufu, who reigned during Egypt's 4th dynasty. Yet no mummy, no sarcophagus, and no inscriptions naming Khufu were ever found inside. The so-called king's chamber was discovered empty, its granite box lidless. Some Egyptologists argue that looters cleared it in antiquity, while others question if the pyramid was ever intended to serve as a burial site at all. Without clear evidence, the structure's true purpose remains uncertain, fueling speculation that ranges from symbolic monuments of power to repositories of ancient knowledge. Legends from the past echo through the desert air, linking the pyramid to forces beyond ordinary human effort. Medieval writers imagined it as a storehouse built to protect wisdom from a coming flood, while more recent fringe theories claim it was an energy machine or a coded message from a lost civilization. Mainstream archaeology rejects such interpretations, pointing instead to ritual, religion, and royal ambition. Yet the persistence of these stories shows how strongly the pyramid invites the imagination to wander beyond the limits of accepted explanation. Nightfall changes the mood around the monument entirely. As the sun drops, the desert cools, and the limestone blocks shift from golden to deep grey. Shadows pool along the base, and the pyramid's edges sharpen against the star-filled sky. Some visitors claim that silence here feels heavier than anywhere else, as though the structure absorbs sound. Others describe a strange sense of timelessness, as if standing before it places them both in the present and in an age thousands of years gone. These impressions, while intangible, add to the aura of mystery that no measurement or excavation can quite erase. Generations of inquiry have only reinforced the sense that the Great Pyramid eludes easy understanding. Every solved puzzle seems to uncover another layer of complexity: how workers coordinated food, tools, and labour on such a scale, how blocks were hauled and placed so precisely, how alignment to the heavens was achieved with such accuracy, why vast internal voids exist yet remain unreachable. Even with modern science and technology, the questions linger. The pyramid's endurance is not only in stone, but in its ability to resist final explanation. And in the silent space between its shadow and the desert stars, the Great Pyramid still feels less like a monument to the past than a riddle waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. Teotihuacan, Mexico. Seen from above, Teotihuacan stretches like a vast, deliberate organism. Straight avenues slice through plazas, pyramids rise like lungs of stone, and residential compounds cluster in precise geometric order. Seen from this perspective, the city feels almost alive, as if every stone and pathway were part of a grand design meant to pulse with hidden energy. Its scale and symmetry hint at intelligence that dwarfs conventional understanding of its time. Below, the imagined rhythms of daily life echo faintly across centuries. Merchants carried obsidian knives and shells from distant coasts, while artisans shaped pottery, murals, and figurines. Streets bustled with people moving in a choreographed flow, yet no written records explain why the city was laid out with such precision. The mystery lies not only in the monuments themselves, but in the culture that orchestrated the daily movements of tens of thousands of inhabitants. The smooth obsidian blades, polished and deadly sharp, hint at both practical and ritual purposes. Workshops across the city reveal intricate obsidian mosaics and finely carved figurines, indicating that craftsmanship was not merely functional but deeply symbolic. Each object, carefully shaped and sometimes painted, suggests a culture that imbued everyday tools with layered meaning, bridging the practical and the sacred. The Pyramid of the Sun dominates the city's horizon. Standing roughly 213 feet tall, it was constructed from millions of stone and adobe blocks, aligned with the sun's path during solstices. Its sheer size is staggering, and the logistics required to haul, stack, and place each block remain an enigma. Archaeologists have found no inscriptions detailing construction methods, leaving only the monument itself to testify to the ingenuity of unknown builders. Ceremonies and offerings surrounded the Pyramid of the Moon, where evidence of human and animal sacrifices has been unearthed. Burials beneath its terraces suggest the structure was more than a temple. It was a sacred axis connecting earth and sky. The alignment of plazas, altars, and pyramid entrances points to a culture deeply aware of celestial patterns, yet the purpose behind such exacting design continues to elude interpretation. The Avenue of the Dead stretches over a mile, flanked by smaller pyramids and palaces. Its orientation mirrors the city's celestial concerns, guiding movement toward key structures like the Pyramid of the Sun and the Moon. Walking along it today, one can almost imagine the processions, the reverent silence, and the rituals that gave life to stone. Yet no contemporary writing survives to tell us precisely what these rituals meant to the people who performed them. Artistic expression in Teotihuacan further deepens the mystery. Murals of jaguars, serpents, and deities adorn walls in residential compounds, while intricate ceramics depict ritual scenes. These images suggest a culture with advanced symbolic thinking, cosmology, and perhaps even esoteric knowledge. But their exact meaning has faded. Interpretations are speculative, leaving only visual fragments of a civilization that communicated through colour, shape, and repeated patterns. Walking through the narrow corridors of residential compounds, one senses a rhythm in the city's layout. Courtyards, stairways, and alleyways align with sunlight and wind patterns, guiding both human traffic and natural elements with uncanny precision. The intentionality behind such urban choreography suggests a population that designed the city to live in harmony with both environment and ritual, though the reasons for such meticulous alignment remain a mystery. The identities of Teotihuacan's builders remain unknown. Unlike Egypt or Mesopotamia, no hieroglyphs or royal names survive to claim ownership. Archaeological evidence points to a multi-ethnic urban population, with migrants from surrounding valleys contributing to construction, trade, and governance. The city's anonymity adds to its allure, a metropolis of immense scale and sophistication, without a clear historical record of its creators. Under the pyramids lie secret chambers and winding tunnels, some found by archaeologists, others revealed over time through natural erosion. Artifacts include obsidian blades, ceramic vessels, and small statues placed carefully within these subterranean spaces. The function of these tunnels is unclear, ritual, storage, or symbolic passageways, but their existence implies that the city was built with layers of hidden knowledge extending below ground as meticulously as the monuments rise above. Evidence of sudden destruction and abandonment compounds the mystery. Burned structures, collapsed walls, and charred artifacts suggest that Teotihuacan suffered internal upheaval or external attack. Around 550 CE, the city was largely depopulated, yet no written accounts survive to explain why. The precision of its planning contrasts sharply with the abruptness of its fall, leaving a haunting question. Why would a city built with such care be left to ruin so suddenly? Modern technology has rekindled fascination with the site. Aerial photography, LiDAR scans, and ground-penetrating radar reveal complex layers of the city invisible to the naked eye. Some scans indicate large chambers and possibly unexcavated pyramidal structures beneath the surface. Each discovery opens new questions. Were these spaces ritualistic, functional, or symbolic? How much more of the city lies hidden beneath layers of earth, waiting for the right moment to surface? Teotihuacan's influence extends far beyond its walls. Artifacts and architectural styles suggest trade and cultural exchange across Mesoamerica. Its geometric urban plan may have inspired later cities, yet no direct continuity exists. Scholars debate whether it functioned as a capital, a pilgrimage centre, a religious hub, or all three. The absence of definitive records ensures that the city remains a puzzle, each stone a clue without a clear answer. At present, the silence of Teotihuacan resonates. Visitors wandering the Avenue of the Dead or climbing the Pyramid of the Sun often remark on the city's strange stillness, a weight that seems to emanate from stone itself. The murals, plazas, and pyramids whisper fragments of a culture that mastered scale, organisation, and symbolic thought. Yet the meaning behind their choices remains obscured. It is a city frozen between life and legend. The shadow of Teotihuacan stretches over time, reminding the world that human ambition can leave structures capable of outlasting civilizations. Every excavation, every artifact, every fragment of painted wall adds to our understanding, yet also deepens the riddle. The city's builders left behind no names, no texts, only the enduring geometry of their design, prompting endless wonder and speculation. In the quiet spaces between pyramids and plazas, Teotihuacan waits, its secrets buried yet tangible, inviting those who approach to realize that some mysteries are meant not to be solved, but to be walked among. Easter Island, Moai, Chile. Wind sweeps across the volcanic cliffs of Easter Island, bending low grasses and scattering the scent of salt from the surrounding Pacific. Isolated and small, the island rises from the ocean like a solitary jewel, its rocky hills dotted with strange silhouettes. From a distance, the Moai statues appear as silent sentinels, standing along the ridges, watching the horizon for reasons no one alive today can fully explain. The first sight of a Moai is disorienting. Towering stone figures, some over 30 feet tall, gaze across the land with hollow eyes, carved mouths, and elongated noses. Their presence is imposing yet strangely serene. Visitors describe a sensation of being watched, as if the statues carry the memories of the people who once thrived here. They're at once human and otherworldly, marking a culture that chose stone to memorialize its ambitions. Carved from volcanic tuff at Rano-Raraku, the Moai emerge directly from the hillsides. Workmanship is evident in each precise contour and in the faint chisel marks that trace the surfaces. Though some are incomplete, their forms hint at uniformity and intention, showing that the carvers understood proportion and weight far beyond what one might expect for an isolated society. Each figure seems to embody the presence of an ancestor captured in solid rock. Some unfinished Moai remain partially embedded in the quarry, revealing that certain statues were intended to reach over 70 feet, a scale that makes even the largest completed figures seem modest. Transporting these massive statues remains a source of fascination and debate. Many weigh tens of tons, yet evidence suggests they were moved across rugged terrain without wheels. Oral traditions describe methods of walking the statues upright, rocking them forward with ropes. Experiments by modern researchers have shown that small teams can indeed maneuver replicas in this way, but the scale and consistency of the feat on the full island is staggering, hinting at knowledge and coordination lost to time. At the ceremonial AHU platforms, the Moai stand in deliberate alignment, facing inland rather than the sea. This orientation suggests a role as guardians of communities, symbolically protecting villages and ensuring spiritual continuity. Each AU varies in size, composition, and stonework, yet all are carefully constructed, demonstrating mastery over construction techniques and a deep understanding of stability and spatial order. The spiritual life of the Rapa Nui people is written into these stones. Beliefs in ancestor worship, mana, and the life-giving force of sacred leaders are intertwined with the Moai. Their creation was not merely artistic or civic, it was devotional, a means to channel protection, prosperity, and guidance. Evidence of offerings, including small figurines and ceremonial objects, has been found near platforms, hinting at a society deeply attuned to spiritual practice and the unseen forces they sought to honour. Certain moai align with celestial events, suggesting that astronomical knowledge may have influenced when and where statues were erected. Erosion and resource scarcity tell another part of the story. Trees once used for transporting statues were eventually depleted, reshaping the island's ecology and perhaps contributing to societal strain. Soil depletion, combined with population pressures, may have forced shifts in settlement patterns and ritual practices. The moai, frozen in their vigil, silently witnessed the consequences of human activity on the fragile island landscape, a reminder that even monumental effort cannot defy nature indefinitely. European explorers first recorded the moai in the 18th century. Accounts from Dutch, Spanish, and later British visitors described awe and bewilderment at the scale and precision of the statues. Their observations emphasized the isolation of the island and the seeming impossibility of erecting such monuments without larger civilizations or advanced machinery. These early reports helped preserve knowledge of the moai while simultaneously deepening the puzzle of their origins. Evidence of decline is etched in toppled and fractured statues. Many were deliberately laid on their backs during internal conflicts, perhaps as part of political or ritual upheavals. The once cohesive social structure that coordinated moai construction appears to have fractured, leaving some statues unfinished or abandoned mid-transport. The sight of fallen stone giants scattered across the terrain speaks of a society that, like the island itself, had reached limits imposed by both human ambition and environmental constraints. Weathered surfaces on many fallen moai show layers of lichen and erosion that obscure once vivid facial features, silently marking the passage of centuries since their toppling. Modern archaeology has revealed further layers of complexity. Ground-penetrating radar and laser scanning at Rano-Raraku and the AHU have uncovered hidden features, including partially buried statues, underground chambers, and tool marks previously unseen. Each discovery adds to understanding, but also deepens the enigma. The sheer number, size, and placement of the moai continue to defy conventional explanations, compelling scientists to balance theory with humility before the ingenuity of the Rapa Nui. Artistry extends beyond carving into subtle details that vary among figures. Some statues bear pukao, cylindrical stone hats made of red scoria, while others have inlaid eyes that once gave the faces a striking, lifelike quality. Differences in proportion, style, and adornment suggest regional or familial influences, hinting at a complex societal organization that managed both construction logistics and cultural symbolism with precision. The rhythm of daily life, inferred from dwellings and agricultural terraces surrounding the moai, reflects a society integrated with its environment. Irrigation canals, stone walls, and cultivated plots show careful planning and resource management, indicating that moai construction was only one part of a broader, highly organized civilization. The statues, in this context, emerge not just as art or ritual objects, but as central markers around which social and economic life revolved. To this day, the island vibrates with a subtle energy. At sunrise, shadows of the moai stretch across the plains, emphasizing their silent vigil. Tourists, researchers, and local descendants alike feel a strange blend of awe and unease, as if the statues carry a message encoded in the very stone, understandable only to those who once carved, transported, and revered them. The moai, in their stillness, defy time. Wind and rain gradually wear their features, yet their presence remains powerful. Across centuries, through societal collapse and ecological shifts, the statues endure, guardians of a vanished world. The isolation of Easter Island amplifies its mystery, leaving each observer to wonder how human hands could achieve such perfection and scale in a place so remote. As the sun dips below the horizon, casting long shadows over volcanic hills, the moai stand unmoving, their secrets held silently beneath the same sky that has watched over them for centuries. Nan Madol, Micronesia. Emerging from Pohnpei's turquoise waters, Nan Madol spans a dozen small artificial islets, all connected by a web of narrow canals. The sun glimmers against basalt walls that seem to float just above the tide, their surfaces smooth and shadowed, hinting at centuries of salt and sun. Moving through this watery labyrinth, it is easy to imagine the city as a dream built on coral, its purpose veiled by waves and time. The walls themselves are astonishing. Basalt columns and coral blocks, some weighing several tons, rise directly from the lagoon, stacked with precision that challenges comprehension. Each stone fits its neighbours so perfectly that the channels of water between the islets form straight, deliberate lines, reflecting an order far beyond what casual observation might reveal. Even today, the waterway paths seem intentionally designed to disorient and impress, as if the architects intended the city to feel like a floating maze. Around 1200 CE, under the enigmatic Sodalur dynasty, the remarkable structures of Nan Madol began to take shape. Little is known about the dynasty's origins, yet its impact on the island is unmistakable. Radiocarbon evidence and the remnants of foundations suggest a rapid expansion, with more than 90 individual islets created from coral fill and basalt. The sheer scale of the project demands questions about organisation, labour, and the societal structures that could have coordinated such a feat. Transporting the basalt columns to their watery platforms presents a puzzle that continues to baffle researchers. The stones were quarried from sites several kilometres away, yet evidence of roads or lifting equipment is minimal. Oral histories and local legends speak of supernatural aid, a narrative echoing the impossibility felt by any visitor standing beside the towering walls. Despite modern machinery, the methods used to place each stone with such balance remain a mystery, hinting at lost techniques or knowledge now hidden beneath the waves. Nan Madol served as more than a city. It was a seat of absolute power and sacred authority. The Sodalur rulers controlled both the political and spiritual life of the island, with ceremonies and governance intertwined. Certain islets were designated for religious purposes, their walls enclosing sacred spaces where only the elite or priestly class could tread. This separation of power and ritual amplified the city's aura, transforming basalt and coral into symbols of divine and earthly authority. The canals themselves form a network that confounds modern mapping. Narrow, shallow, and winding, they snake between the islets in patterns that appear at once intentional and chaotic. From above, the city resembles a puzzle, with water reflecting the sunlight in ways that mask the precision beneath. Navigating these waterways, even in calm weather, feels like walking through a dreamscape, where orientation is constantly challenged by reflections, shadows, and the rigid geometry of stone. As the centuries passed, the Sodalur dynasty waned, and the city's structure began to deteriorate. Oral tradition recounts the dynasty's overthrow by Isokelekul, a semi-mythical figure whose conquest ended centralized rule. With the collapse of authority, the canals became overgrown, the islets slowly eroded, and the coral foundations weakened. Nature reclaimed the city, yet the basalt walls endured, holding the shape of once thriving yet vanished civilization. Using satellite imaging, aerial surveys, and underwater mapping of its lagoons, modern archaeologists continue to explore Nan Madol. Findings reveal that the islets were not random, each had a specific function, from elite residences to ceremonial platforms, suggesting a high degree of urban planning. Yet even with these insights, much remains unknown, including the precise purpose of the canals, the full extent of the labour required, and the symbolic meanings embedded in the city's layout. Visitors today find the city eerie and sublime. Walking along the narrow causeways or paddling through the canals, the sense of isolation is intensified by the constant sound of water lapping against stone. Each islet feels both familiar and alien, as if human hands created a city that defies ordinary understanding. The water, ever present, blurs boundaries, making the structures appear both permanent and fleeting, monumental yet ghostly. Nan Madol's endurance raises further questions. Unlike many coastal sites, the basalt walls have resisted centuries of typhoons, tides, and tropical weathering. While wooden structures and coral buildings decay rapidly, these massive stones remain, an enduring testament to human ambition and engineering. The city's survival seems almost deliberate, as if the architects intended their creation to outlast the civilizations that built it, preserving a secret in the silent rhythm of water and stone. Even now, mysteries linger in the smallest details. Some islets contain megalithic chambers whose purpose remains uncertain, while others hold alignments that hint at ritualistic or astronomical significance. No written records from the original builders exist, leaving gaps that must be filled with observation, inference, and the occasional whispered legend. Each discovery only deepens the enigma, reminding visitors that the city was designed to awe, conceal, and endure. The relationship between water and stone at Nan Madol is particularly captivating. Certain walls are so close to the tidal edge that high water laps at the very base of the structures, giving the impression that the city floats. Seasonal changes shift the perception further, with dry periods revealing more causeways and wet periods masking paths entirely. This fluidity reinforces the city's mystique, emphasizing a dynamic interaction with nature rather than static construction. Artifacts recovered from Nan Madol hint at trade, wealth, and cultural exchange. Tools fashioned from basalt and shell, along with pottery fragments, suggest a sophisticated economy and far-reaching contacts. Yet these objects, while illuminating daily life, raise more questions than they answer about governance, social hierarchy, and the grand vision behind the city's layout. The human imprint is unmistakable, yet many intentions remain inscrutable. Scholars have also noted that certain islets appear deliberately isolated, perhaps for ritual or governance purposes. These islands, surrounded by deeper or narrower canals, might have functioned as spaces for solitude, meditation, or administration, reflecting a highly structured society. The contrast between communal areas and isolated platforms enhances the sense that Nan Madol was a city both practical and ceremonial, ordinary and extraordinary. Despite intensive study, Nan Madol continues to defy easy classification. Some researchers label it a city, others a ceremonial complex, and still others a fortress. The duality of its form, between stone and water, permanence and ephemerality, labour and legend, ensures that every interpretation uncovers new questions. It remains a testament to human ingenuity, ambition, and the enduring appeal of the unknown. The city's visual impact is immediate, but its true effect lies in the combination of scale, layout, and environment. Standing among the basalt walls with water reflecting light and shadow, visitors feel dwarfed, disoriented, and awed simultaneously. The city is at once an architectural wonder and a puzzle whose solution seems just beyond reach, as if the water itself guards its secrets. The basalt walls rise from the water like a forgotten kingdom, their purpose and origin drifting just beyond the reach of memory or understanding. Newgrange, Ireland. Mist clings to the green mound as the morning sun struggles to pierce the low-hanging clouds, softening the outline of stones laid more than 5,000 years ago. From a distance, Newgrange appears as nothing more than a gentle hill, yet every contour and curbstone hints at a deliberate intention, a story embedded in earth and light that has resisted the passage of centuries. The air carries the scent of damp grass and the faint trace of ancient soil, evoking a world where people once moved with careful reverence along the mound's circumference, shaping it into a vessel of memory and ritual. Over 5 millennia, countless generations have walked these fields, yet the mound retains its enigma. Constructed around 3200 BCE, Newgrange predates both Stonehenge and the Great Pyramid of Giza, a fact that astonishes even seasoned historians. Its size and sophistication suggest a society that commanded both the labour of many and the knowledge of precise alignment, raising the enduring question: how did these early people conceive of such a monumental passage tomb with astronomical accuracy so far back in time? On the winter solstice, an event that must have been known to the builders, a narrow beam of sunlight penetrates the roof box and creeps along the corbelled passageway, illuminating the inner chamber for mere minutes. For those who witness it, the effect is haunting, a shaft of gold that strikes the heart of the tomb, as if the sun itself is paying homage to the dead. This interplay of shadow and light transforms stone and earth into a living calendar, connecting life and death in a single breath of illumination that has endured for thousands of years. How did the builders manage such precision without the tools we consider essential for measurement? The corridor stretches nearly 20 metres, and the stones forming the corbelled roof were set with perfect care to create an interior that has withstood millennia of Irish weather. Modern surveys show the alignment is so exact that even a slight miscalculation would have disrupted the solstice phenomenon entirely, yet no trace of advanced instruments has been found. It is a silent testament to human observation and ingenuity that continues to baffle archaeologists. Spirals, lozenges, and other abstract motifs curl across the curbstones, their meanings lost to time, but their presence is undeniable. Some carvings echo the circular patterns of the sun, while others suggest symbols of water or life, leaving viewers to wonder whether they were part of ritual instruction, storytelling, or a sacred language now incomprehensible. These carvings are not scattered haphazardly. They are carefully arranged to draw the eye, encouraging meditation on forces far greater than human life, hinting at spiritual understanding that predates written history. Inside the tomb, the chamber's corbelled ceiling rises in a beehive of stone, engineered to create stability without mortar. Each slab rests on the other, in a technique that distributes weight evenly, allowing the mound to survive the centuries with minimal structural collapse. This sophisticated engineering demonstrates a combination of intuition, careful observation, and practical skill, though the exact methods remain elusive. Every angle, every joint, speaks to a knowledge that cannot be fully explained by the artifacts left behind. Traces of cremation uncovered during excavations imply that the mound served as a sacred resting place for certain members of the community. Bones, pottery fragments, and other offerings indicate that the chamber was more than a tomb. It was a focal point of spiritual life, a space where the living communicated with the dead through ritualized interaction. Yet despite these findings, much remains unknown. Who were these people? And why did they dedicate such effort to a structure that intertwines astronomy, art, and memory in such a precise way? The mound itself is encircled by a ring of curbstones, each one meticulously shaped and positioned. These stones are both protective and symbolic, forming a boundary between the sacred interior and the surrounding world. Some feature intricate carvings, while others remain deliberately plain, creating a rhythm of ornamentation and restraint that adds to the mound's silent grandeur. Observers today are struck not only by the scale but by the subtlety of intention evident in every carefully placed rock. A roof box above the entrance serves as the conduit for the winter solstice's light, a mechanism that would have required long-term observation of the sun's path to perfect. Scholars have speculated that builders tracked shadows over years, learning the angles and distances needed to ensure the solstice beam reached the inner chamber's central stone. This process, though only partially understood, suggests a remarkable grasp of celestial mechanics and patience that modern engineering struggles to replicate with the same natural precision. Some stones bear subtle traces of paint, hinting that colour may have enhanced the carvings and passages when Newgrange was in active use. Though only faint pigments survive, they provide evidence that the tomb's interior was intended to be both visual and symbolic, a multisensory environment designed to impress, guide, and perhaps even terrify those who entered. Colour would have transformed the cold stone into something alive, reinforcing the spiritual resonance of each ceremonial act conducted within. Beyond the mound, the surrounding landscape is dotted with smaller burial sites and ritual enclosures, suggesting that Newgrange was part of a much larger sacred complex. These satellite sites hint at a network of observation and ritual extending across the Boyne Valley, implying social organisation and religious practice that required coordination on a scale few would expect for 3200 BCE. The interconnectedness of these sites demonstrates a sophisticated understanding of both geography and the rhythms of seasonal change. There is ongoing debate among archaeologists as to whether Newgrange was built mainly as a tomb, a calendar, a temple, or a combination thereof. The convergence of art, astronomy, and architecture within a single mound suggests the builders sought to merge practical observation with spiritual significance. The precision and intent present throughout the structure compel observers to recognize that this was not a casual undertaking, but a deliberate creation designed to endure both time and human curiosity. On the chamber floor, visitors today can feel the quiet and imagine both the hands that constructed it and the lives it memorialized. The air within feels different, heavier and quieter than the surrounding fields, as though centuries of ceremony have imbued the space with a lingering presence. In this environment, the mound's scale and subtlety become almost tangible, leaving each person to confront the same mystery that has fascinated scholars for generations. Even after decades of study, Newgrange guards its secrets, and every solstice brings new visitors who witness the interplay of light and stone that has inspired awe for millennia. Archaeological efforts continue to uncover minute details about construction methods, ceremonial objects, and traces of human activity, but each discovery raises more questions than it answers. The more that is learned, the greater the sense of wonder and the deeper the impression that something essential about the mound's purpose remains hidden. Across the Boyne Valley, the mound murmurs of a civilization that reached for the sun and spoke in spirals, leaving behind a monument that keeps its secrets just out of human grasp. Derinkuyu Underground City, Turkey. The hillside near the town of Derinkuyu looks unremarkable at first glance, dotted with olive trees and low stone walls, yet it conceals a secret that has bewildered generations. Beneath the soft soil, a vast network of tunnels and chambers stretches for miles, carved entirely by human hands. When local villagers first stumbled upon a hidden doorway in 1963, little did they realise they had uncovered an entrance into a subterranean labyrinth capable of housing tens of thousands. The sight of the narrow stair descending into darkness is arresting, a passage that seems to swallow light and sound alike, inviting both awe and apprehension. As you descend the first steps, the air grows cooler, thick with the scent of damp earth and the faint tang of stone. Shadows stretch along the walls, following the uneven surfaces carved over centuries. Each room opens unexpectedly, some cramped and intimate, others surprisingly spacious, their ceilings supported by carved pillars that feel both functional and oddly elegant. The deeper you go, the more the architecture reveals a civilization adept at manipulating space, creating a city not on the surface of the earth but within it. How could ancient builders construct such a place without modern tools? The tunnels twist and turn in ways that suggest careful planning, with vertical shafts connecting different levels and allowing air to circulate throughout the subterranean city. Massive stone doors, each carved from a single block, could be rolled into place to seal off entire sections, a defense mechanism that hints at both ingenuity and a constant concern for safety. It is difficult to imagine moving such stones without levers, pulleys or cranes, yet here they remain, aligned and immovable after centuries. Light from the entrance dwindles quickly, replaced by flickering lamps carried by visitors. The sensation of enclosed space grows, walls pressing closer, ceilings dipping lower in some corridors. Kitchens with carved hearths, wine presses and storage rooms appear as if frozen in time, suggesting the city was self-sufficient. Evidence of ventilation shafts, wells and waste channels demonstrates careful engineering, a sophisticated understanding of human needs underground that rivals the best above-ground settlements of the period. A sudden turn reveals hidden chambers whose purpose remains debated. Some suggest communal halls for meetings or ceremonies, while others point to small family quarters. Every passage seems to hold a secret, every corner a question. The more you explore, the more the scale astonishes. Derinkuyu is not a single structure but an interwoven city that expands vertically across at least 8 levels, with undiscovered tunnels still suspected beyond known boundaries. By the 8th century, Christian communities sought refuge here from Arab invasions, yet the tunnels predate that period by centuries, possibly even a millennium. Carvings on walls, niches for religious icons, and burial alcoves indicate repeated use and adaptation over time. The layers of occupation add both historical context and deeper mystery. Each generation left traces without revealing the full story of the original builders, a civilization now lost to time. Descending further, the city narrows, forcing the visitor to stoop or squeeze sideways. The walls are smooth in places, rough in others, bearing the marks of chisels and hand tools. Even in tight spaces, the architects incorporated ingenuity. Hidden chambers, escape passages, and false corridors designed to confuse intruders. Walking through these sections, it becomes apparent that survival was paramount, a subterranean life dictated by both necessity and fear. Looking up through ventilation shafts, glimpses of light puncture the darkness, tiny windows to the surface world. The shafts are precisely aligned to allow airflow throughout the levels, a testament to the knowledge of physics and human health held by the builders. Some passages show signs of repeated widening, suggesting modifications to accommodate larger populations or evolving needs. These subtle changes reveal a city that was not static but a living, adaptable structure maintained over centuries. The massive stone doors, each weighing several tons, are the most striking defensive features. Carved with circular grooves to rotate on stone pivots, they could isolate entire levels in moments, protecting inhabitants from invaders or marauders. Despite their size, the doors move with surprising ease, evidence of careful engineering and a deep understanding of leverage. It is a reminder that the underground city was designed with both longevity and protection in mind, a fortress hidden beneath ordinary hills. Some rooms hold wells carved directly into the rock, providing fresh water throughout the complex. Others have storage spaces large enough to last for months, demonstrating foresight and planning for extended periods of isolation. The city is not simply a refuge, but a fully functional settlement capable of sustaining thousands. Every element, from sleeping quarters to communal kitchens, reflects both the ingenuity and the urgency of a people who understood the fragility of life above ground. Archaeologists have mapped the known tunnels, yet many passages remain unexplored or inaccessible, creating an ever-present sense of unfinished discovery. Some corridors twist in impossible directions, intersecting with others in ways that confuse even the most meticulous maps. The possibility of hidden chambers adds a layer of tension. Each corner turned could reveal more secrets, or merely another locked doorway concealing centuries of mystery. Walking through Derinkuyu, one cannot escape the sense that the city is alive in memory, echoing the footsteps of generations who descended into its chambers. The echoing corridors, cool stone walls, and intricate architecture evoke a civilization intimately aware of human vulnerability, yet capable of extraordinary adaptation. Every stone carved, every room designed, whispers of lives lived underground, out of sight but deeply rooted in ingenuity and resilience. Rising from the lowest levels, the ascent reveals a final surprise, a complex of interconnected chambers near the surface, blending almost seamlessly with the hillside above. This transition from shadowed depths to sunlit earth emphasizes the contrast between hidden survival and open civilization, a testament to the careful planning and remarkable foresight of the original builders. And deep below the ordinary hills of Cappadocia, passages still wind into darkness that no explorer has yet fully mapped, leaving questions older than the city itself. Ollantaytambo, Peru. The morning sun spills over the sacred valley, illuminating terraced slopes that climb sharply into the Andes. The village of Ollantaytambo rests in its shadow, its narrow streets lined with stone houses that have stood since the Inca Empire. From this vantage, it is impossible not to feel the weight of history pressing down from the mountains, where terraces rise with almost impossible precision. Each level seems cut and positioned with exact care, forming patterns that speak to a knowledge of engineering far beyond what would be expected in the 15th century. As the wind moves through the valley, it carries a quiet hum, as if the stones themselves remember the hands that placed them. Stepping onto the fortress's lower plaza, the scale of the construction becomes more apparent. Massive stones rise along walls that once repelled Spanish forces, and their sheer size and angular placement evoke questions about methods long lost to time. The walls are not haphazard. Each block fits into its neighbour with uncanny precision, resisting the shifting forces of centuries. Accounts from the Spanish chroniclers, including Pedro Cieza de Leon in the 1550s, marvel at the fortifications and describe how the Inca held the town with strategy and ingenuity. Yet even these observers could not explain the sheer magnitude of the stonework, leaving a lingering sense of wonder. Terraces stretch from the fortress into the mountainside, their slopes interwoven with stairways and narrow pathways. Archaeologists have long debated how the Incas moved the immense stones, many weighing several tons from quarries miles away. Trails winding through the mountains hint at organised transport methods, but no evidence of wheeled vehicles has been found. Some terraces curve and angle as if following the sun, suggesting a deeper awareness of astronomical alignment. Farmers today still cultivate parts of the terraces, unknowingly maintaining the ancient geometry and preserving an enduring legacy that blurs the line between practical use and ceremonial design. Rising above the town, the fortress walls reveal a meticulous arrangement of stone blocks, some weighing over 50 tons. The precision of the cuts allows the stones to fit together seamlessly without mortar, leaving observers puzzled over how the Incas managed such feats with tools considered rudimentary. Visitors often marvel at the way the sunlight hits certain corners at sunrise, illuminating the walls in a golden glow that seems almost intentional, hinting at a deeper understanding of both construction and celestial patterns. Ascending the fortress walls toward the temple hill, the stones seem to grow in size, each more imposing than the last. The hill itself is a puzzle, a deliberate choice by Inca architects who built with both defense and symbolism in mind. The terraces below serve as both agriculture and fortification, while above, the carefully arranged stones form walls that are both impenetrable and precise. Observers note that the angles of some walls correspond with strategic vantage points over the valley, yet the precision of the cut stones suggests techniques that surpass simple military planning. Questions linger. How did a society without iron tools carve and fit these stones with such skill? From the sun gate, light falls across the plaza in a precise pattern during the summer solstice. Shadows stretch across stairways, forming angles that may have held religious significance. Scholars speculate that these alignments reflect an advanced understanding of solar movements, yet the purpose remains elusive. The Incas left few written records, relying instead on oral tradition and ceremonial observation. This subtle dialogue between stone and sunlight hints at knowledge carefully encoded into the landscape, knowledge that could only be fully understood by those who lived intimately with it. Nearby quarries reveal partially worked blocks, their surfaces marked by repeated chiselling that raises more questions than answers. Some stones appear to have been abandoned mid-shape, while others are rounded in ways that suggest highly controlled shaping techniques. Researchers have noted the uniformity in block size and placement, implying a level of standardization uncommon for the era. The thought of moving these stones uphill, aligning them with terraces, and fitting them so seamlessly into walls inspires awe, as well as a deep sense of the unknown. Hidden within the complex are secret passages and niches that seem almost forgotten, their purpose unclear. Some narrow corridors lead to small chambers whose ceilings are shaped with a subtle curvature, perhaps designed to strengthen the structure or to conceal something long lost. Archaeologists continue to debate whether these spaces were used for storage, ritual, or a combination of both, but the mystery of why they were built with such care endures. Winding staircases lead through ceremonial spaces where plazas open into terraces with commanding views of the valley below. In these spaces, the boundary between everyday life and sacred ritual becomes uncertain. Each step and wall seems intentional, designed to guide both the eye and the mind toward a larger, perhaps spiritual purpose. The Incas' choices in elevation, orientation and stonework provoke the sense that these spaces were meant to connect human activity with cosmic order, though the exact meaning remains unrecorded and open to interpretation. Observing the village streets from the terraces, it becomes clear that Ollantaytambo was not abandoned. It has remained a living settlement for centuries. Residents walk along the same stone streets that their ancestors did, preserving domestic patterns that mirror the past. This continuity adds depth to the mystery, as the site functions simultaneously as a fortress, a ceremonial hub, and a home. The integration of life and architecture here is unparalleled, suggesting that the Incas valued both permanence and adaptability in their urban design. As the day wanes, the terraces take on a different character under the shifting light. Shadows deepen the cuts between stones, emphasizing angles and joins that resist explanation. Scholars have attempted to recreate the Inca construction methods using ropes, wooden levers, and manpower, yet no modern simulation fully captures the ease with which these massive stones were manipulated and positioned. Every visit to the site reinforces the sense that the builders possessed a knowledge of physics, geometry, and labor organization that remains partly hidden from contemporary understanding. Above the terraces, remnants of finely carved stones hint at a once grand ceremonial platform where only the highest-ranking individuals might have stood. The symmetry and alignment of these stones suggest knowledge of geometry and astronomy far beyond what most researchers credit to the Incas. Standing in the shadow of these ancient stones, it becomes almost impossible not to wonder what knowledge or secrets have been deliberately hidden from the centuries that followed. Somewhere among the terraces and hidden stones, a secret of the Incas waits silently, untouched and still unimagined. Cahokia Mounds, USA. From the riverbanks, the mounds rise like silent sentinels across the plain, their shapes blotting the horizon with an unnatural symmetry that hints at deliberate design. Monk's Mound, the largest of them all, dominates the landscape, its terraces rising in stepped layers that seem impossibly precise for a civilization that left no written records. The flat expanse surrounding it amplifies the sense of scale, and from above, the interconnected plazas, avenues, and smaller mounds form a pattern that hints at careful planning and purpose. Looking across the site today, it is hard not to feel the ghost of thousands of lives once interwoven within these earthen walls. The wind carries dust across the flat plains where once thousands of people moved daily, voices lost to time, footsteps now replaced by the rustle of grasses. The air seems to carry faint echoes of activity, children running along compacted paths, artisans shaping pottery, traders calling out over distances, and priests performing ceremonies that mark the cycles of life and the heavens. Even the soil seems to remember, for each compacted layer holds traces of human presence, compressed over centuries into forms that modern archaeologists can read like a faint, almost forgotten script. Early French explorers in the 17th century marvelled at the towering earthen structures, noting their size and precision, while struggling to imagine how ancient hands had moved such vast quantities of soil. They described the mounds as unnatural, considering them greater than any European fortification of the time, and often speculated whether the builders had divine guidance or some lost knowledge. Their accounts, while sparse, have become critical fragments of history, offering glimpses of how awe-inspiring Cahokia appeared to outsiders even centuries after its decline. Monk's Mound climbs higher than the surrounding treetops, yet its construction methods remain hidden, the layers of packed earth forming terraces that defy modern understanding. Soil analysis reveals carefully selected and compacted materials, evidence of thousands of labourers organised into a precise and sustained effort. Wooden retaining structures may have supported the terraces, but little remains above ground to confirm this, leaving researchers to imagine the countless hands and tools that shape the mound with both skill and purpose. Each level seems to hold a story, yet the full narrative remains tantalisingly out of reach. The terraces themselves tell a story of labour and coordination, each layer a testament to the thousands of workers who shaped the earth with painstaking care. Soil samples show deliberate selection of clay, sand and silt, compacted to create stability that has lasted centuries. Some sections contain subtle variations in composition, suggesting specialised knowledge of structural engineering that allowed the mound to endure floods and erosion. Observers are left wondering how this society organised such monumental labour without written records or iron tools, and what techniques might have been lost entirely to time. At sunrise during the solstice, shadows align along the timber circles, hinting at ceremonies long lost in a civilization that measured time through the sky as much as the soil. These alignments suggest that Cahokia's planners observed solar patterns with accuracy, marking celestial events that governed agricultural cycles and religious observances. Observers note that certain plazas and mounds correspond to the sunrise or sunset during key times of the year, implying that ritual, astronomy and urban design were inseparably intertwined in the city's blueprint. Burials within the smaller mounds reveal engraved shells and ornaments that trace connections across the continent, suggesting far-reaching trade networks and cultural exchange. Copper from the Great Lakes, marine shells from the Gulf Coast, and mica from distant Appalachian sources have all been found, indicating that Cahokia was not isolated but part of an intricate web of communication and commerce. Each artifact raises questions about who came, what they brought, and how these items were valued and used in ceremonies, trade, or as status symbols. Among the smaller mounds, archaeologists have uncovered remnants of post structures and wooden frames that may have supported elevated platforms or ceremonial stages. Charred remains of timber hint at ritual fires, while traces of pigments on nearby soil suggest symbolic decoration. These discoveries indicate that Cahokia's builders integrated performance, ceremony, and observation into the very ground of the city, blending physical space with social and spiritual function. Each artifact and pattern prompts new questions about who conducted rituals, how often, and what knowledge of the cosmos they sought to encode in these ephemeral constructions. Rivers shifted, forests receded, yet why the city's heart fell silent remains unresolved, leaving scholars to wonder if environmental stress, warfare, or societal upheaval was to blame. Some evidence points to flooding and changes in the Mississippi River's course, while other clues hint at internal discord or depletion of resources. Yet the abruptness of Cahokia's decline adds to the mystery. A city that once thrived with tens of thousands of inhabitants suddenly emptied, leaving monuments and mounds as silent witnesses to its sudden absence. Post holes, hearths, and compacted paths reveal the rhythms of daily existence, from cooking and crafting to gathering in plazas that once pulsed with political and spiritual activity. Researchers have reconstructed homes and workshops, tracing how residents organise their lives around the mounds, sharing space and labour in ways that suggest both community cohesion and hierarchical control. Even as these details emerge, the complexity of social and spiritual life at Cahokia eludes full comprehension, hinting at knowledge and traditions carefully embedded into the city's design. The avenues and plazas show careful orientation, as if the builders followed celestial cues or sacred geometry, hinting at a mind that blended practicality with ritual significance. The Grand Plaza, the largest open area in the city, aligns with major mounds in patterns that may have facilitated processions, ceremonies, and public gatherings. Timber circles, once towering and imposing, complement these alignments, forming a cityscape that balances human activity, spiritual observance, and astronomical observation in a way that continues to puzzle modern planners and archaeologists alike. The outer reaches of Cahokia yield traces of pathways and compacted ground, connecting mounds, plazas, and living quarters, revealing a city organised for gathering and procession. The arrangement of these thoroughfares suggests a careful plan balancing daily life, religious observance, and political power, yet much remains hidden beneath layers of soil. Even as archaeologists trace the outlines of homes and workshops, the full scope of Cahokia's social hierarchy and the rituals performed within these spaces remain tantalizingly out of reach, preserving a lingering aura of mystery. Far below the prairie's surface, the secrets of Cahokia remain in silence, as puzzling as they were 1,000 years ago. The Longyou Caves, China. Inside the Longyou Caves, the darkness stretches wider than imagination, punctuated only by the sharp angles of carved stone. Rows of columns rise with geometric precision, supporting ceilings that seem impossibly flat and unbroken. Each chamber stretches hundreds of meters, yet the entire space feels meticulously ordered, as if a single mind had orchestrated the carving of every wall, floor, and pillar. The silence amplifies the sense of scale, making the visitor feel both small and insignificant in the presence of human determination, frozen in stone. Light from the entrance cuts a pale path across the floor, revealing patterns in the grooves and markings that invite more questions than answers. The air is cool and still, carrying a faint scent of damp earth and limestone, and the slightest footstep echoes endlessly through the void. Each echo bounces off the polished walls, emphasizing the vast emptiness while hinting at careful acoustical design. Some chambers seem to amplify sound in unexpected ways, while others swallow it entirely, creating pockets of near-complete silence. The physical experience of walking through these spaces leaves an impression of intentionality. Every angle, every chamber, every surface appears to have been considered, though the purpose remains a mystery. When local villagers stumbled upon the entrance in 1992, they could not have foreseen the scale of what lay hidden beneath their fields in Longyou, Zhejiang province. What began as a simple inspection of a collapsed wall revealed a doorway into a vast network of underground chambers. Archaeologists soon discovered at least 24 interconnected caves, each carved from siltstone with such uniformity that modern tools seem inadequate for the task. The cave's existence was not recorded in any historical text, leaving scholars perplexed and forcing a re-evaluation of what ancient civilizations in China might have been capable of. Every chamber reveals perfectly squared walls, ceilings marked by parallel grooves, and columns hewn with geometric precision that defies modern understanding. Floors are polished flat, sometimes over hundreds of square meters, and the edges of each chamber meet at angles so exact that even today's engineers marvel. The grooves in the ceilings and walls are consistently spaced, leading some to suggest ritual or symbolic purposes, while others argue they could reflect structural methods unknown to modern science. Each detail implies a level of planning, skill, and labour organisation that seems extraordinary for the presumed era of construction, estimated to be more than 2,000 years ago. Who could have organised such labour without written records, and why did they carve the stone with such meticulous uniformity? There are no traces of scaffolding, pulleys, or machinery, yet the precision implies a sophisticated understanding of weight, leverage, and geometry. Some chambers have ceilings that span over 10 metres without visible supports, an architectural feat that baffles historians. The sheer volume of removed material, estimates suggest more than 1 million cubic metres, points to a massive workforce working in coordinated effort over years, Yet no evidence explains how such an endeavour could have been completed or why it was undertaken in secrecy. Some chambers bear subtle depressions in the floor or niches in the walls, hinting at ceremonial use that no historian can yet confirm. These spaces are often symmetrical with raised platforms or carved recesses that suggest designated functions, though none have yielded conclusive artefacts. The uniformity across different caves implies shared design principles, perhaps reflecting a centralized authority or a singular cultural vision. Archaeologists debate whether these features were meant for ritual, storage, or a combination of both, but the consistency of their execution is a testament to knowledge that has been lost to time. Small carvings, including parallel lines and shallow grooves, appear throughout the caves, yet their meaning remains undeciphered. Some patterns resemble counting systems or symbolic codes, while others appear purely decorative. The repetition and symmetry suggest intentional communication, a method to convey messages, measure space, or encode knowledge, though the true purpose is speculative. Such markings continue to draw researchers, engineers, and adventurers alike, each hoping to uncover a clue to the methods or beliefs of those who created the underground labyrinth. Even the movement of air through the caves seems deliberate, with narrow channels connecting chambers in ways that regulate airflow and temperature. Some passages funnel breezes that would carry sound across long distances, hinting at the possibility that certain areas were designed for gatherings or announcements. Others create still pockets where sounds vanish, perhaps providing private or sacred spaces. The interaction of natural physics and human design is one of the many reasons the Longyou caves continue to defy straightforward explanation. The cave's immense size and precision invite endless questions about time, labour and purpose. How could ancient workers have achieved such uniformity, using only chisels and hammers? Why were these spaces hidden beneath the surface rather than built above ground? Despite ongoing study, no consensus has emerged, leaving the cave's origins and intentions cloaked in ambiguity. Each excavation uncovers more details, yet only deepens the sense of wonder and uncertainty, reinforcing that the human story here is incomplete and tantalizingly out of reach. Modern researchers have used ground-penetrating radar and 3D mapping to understand the cave's structure without causing damage, revealing previously unnoticed chambers and passageways. Even with this technology, the cave's design continues to confound, as patterns emerge that suggest advanced planning but resist full comprehension. Some speculate on lost construction techniques, while others consider the possibility of purposes tied to spiritual or astronomical knowledge, though evidence remains circumstantial. The deeper scholars probe, the more questions surface, highlighting the cave's dual role as both a technical and cultural mystery. Visitors stepping into the Longyou caves cannot help but feel the weight of human ingenuity frozen in time. The smooth stone, immense scale, and echoing corridors evoke awe and an unsettling realization of how little is known about the people who carved them. Each chamber conveys both permanence and secrecy, a record of labor and intention that surpasses ordinary explanation. The caves challenge assumptions about what ancient societies could achieve and invites speculation about lost histories hidden just below the surface. Light from the entrance fades quickly as one moves deeper, leaving shadows that accentuate the carved precision of walls and ceilings. The further inside, the more pronounced the sense of deliberate planning becomes, as though every angle, every recess, and every polished surface serves a purpose now obscured by centuries. These shadows play tricks on the eye, turning simple columns into imposing monuments and creating a labyrinth of perception that mirrors the unknowable minds of their creators. Scholars continue to debate not only the construction methods, but also the reason these caves were built at all. Were they ceremonial spaces, storage chambers, or shelters for a forgotten population? Evidence remains circumstantial, including the occasional ceramic fragment or trace of organic material, yet nothing offers a complete narrative. The lack of historical documentation intensifies the puzzle, making the caves a canvas upon which imagination and research converge, constantly questioning the boundaries of ancient engineering and culture. Hidden deep beneath the fields of Zhejiang, each chamber waits as if suspended in time, untouched by centuries of human activity. Researchers tread carefully, knowing that disturbance could erase subtle clues embedded in the floors, walls, and ceilings. Yet even in preservation, the Longyou caves maintain a sense of active presence, as though they observe the visitor, holding on to their secrets with deliberate restraint and leaving only fragments for the modern mind to interpret. The Longyou caves remain one of the most baffling archaeological discoveries of the modern era, a subterranean world of precision, scale, and mystery that continues to challenge understanding of ancient human capability. Every expedition uncovers new insights, yet each revelation raises further questions about labour, intent, and knowledge lost to time. The hidden city beneath the earth invites both admiration and speculation, ensuring that those who enter are forever aware of the gap between human achievement and human comprehension. Centuries may pass, but the Longyou caves stand silent, guarding the secrets of those who carved them. Tikal, Guatemala. Through the thick curtain of caber and strangler fig vines, the spires of stone pierce the morning mist, unexpected and silent. Tikal emerges from the dense peat jungle, its temples towering above the canopy as if defying the passage of time. The forest floor is a mosaic of roots, fallen leaves, and scattered stones, yet here and there, clearings reveal the scale of a city that once thrived with tens of thousands. From this vantage, the sheer ambition of its builders is undeniable, and the jungle itself seems to hum with a quiet reverence for what lies hidden within. The buzz of insects, the rustle of howler monkeys, and the heavy scent of damp earth fill the air as one steps onto the main plaza. Paths of packed limestone and earth hint at constant movement, suggesting markets, gatherings, and ceremonial processions. It is easy to imagine the city alive with sound and motion, artisans shaping pottery, traders calling across distances, priests leading ritual dances. Every footprint pressed into the soil over centuries contributes to the story that archaeologists attempt to reconstruct, though much remains veiled by time. In 1848, Modesto Mendes and Ambrosio Tut ventured into the uncharted Peyton Forest and unveiled Tikal's monumental temples to the outside world. Their sketches and journals captured only a fraction of the city's complexity, yet they were enough to astound contemporary scholars in Europe. Later, in the early 20th century, Sylvanus Morley and other archaeologists expanded knowledge of Tikal's layout, documenting plazas, bull courts, and towering pyramids. Even with these efforts, many details of construction techniques, social hierarchy, and urban planning continue to confound researchers, preserving the city's air of mystery. From the plaza, Temple 4 dominates the skyline, its height asserting both authority and ambition. Built of limestone blocks, some weighing multiple tons, it rises above lower structures in stepped layers. Analysis shows careful selection and placement of materials, with each layer meticulously arranged to ensure stability over centuries. The surrounding acropolis and adjacent pyramids reveal consistent patterns of measurement and alignment, hinting at an understanding of geometry and engineering that defies easy explanation. Scholars have debated how such massive structures were moved, cut, and positioned without metal tools, yet the stones remain steadfast, a testament to meticulous planning and execution. At sunrise on the equinox, shadows from Temple would stretch across the plaza, marking cycles recorded in the heavens and on earth. Archaeologists have identified precise alignments between pyramids, plazas, and stelae that correspond with solar and lunar events. These alignments suggest that Tikal's planners measured and observed celestial movements with accuracy, integrating cosmology into the city's very framework. Each solstice and equinox would have transformed the cityscape into a living calendar, guiding rituals, agriculture, and social life in ways that remain partially deciphered. Glyphs carved into stelae recount ceremonies performed by kings and priests, memorializing battles, alliances, and sacred rites. The artistry of these inscriptions reflects a deep cultural sophistication, with figures rendered in precise poses that indicate rank, role, and spiritual significance. Bull courts, often aligned with major temples, may have been venues for ritualized sport, reinforcing social hierarchies and divine sanction. Each ceremonial space invites questions about the balance of power, spirituality, and civic organization, and how these elements converge to sustain such a formidable city. Climbing the steep steps of Temple 2, one notices subtle carvings etched into stone corners, easily missed by casual visitors. Patterns of jaguar motifs, celestial symbols, and abstract designs appear at deliberate intervals, often aligning with sightlines across the plaza. The carvings seem to communicate more than aesthetic beauty, potentially marking ritual significance or astronomical events. As researchers examine these details, it becomes clear that even the smallest details were imbued with meaning, reinforcing the idea that Tikal's builders encoded knowledge into every surface. By the 10th century, the streets fell silent, and Tikal's grandeur became overgrown, leaving only ruins to guard the absence of its inhabitants. Environmental pressures, including deforestation and shifts in rainfall, likely strained agriculture, while internal conflicts or regional power struggles may have contributed to depopulation. Excavations reveal layers of debris and abandoned structures, hinting at a society that disappeared rapidly, yet left behind an urban landscape of astonishing scale. The abruptness of decline adds to the enigma, as a city that once pulsed with life now lies under the weight of centuries of jungle growth. Concealed under layers of forest, remnants of canals and reservoirs reveal a city skilled in controlling water. Carefully levelled channels guided rainwater toward holding basins, ensuring that Tikal's population could thrive even during dry spells. The precise grading of these features suggests detailed planning and an understanding of hydrology that few civilizations of the era could match. Archaeologists studying these remnants have noted that the arrangement allowed the city to store, distribute and protect water efficiently, yet modern engineers still marvel at the ingenuity required to sustain such a populous city in the heart of the jungle. Equipped with machetes and trowels, 20th century archaeologists uncovered palaces, ball courts, and altars long hidden beneath soil and vegetation. Each dig provides a glimpse into domestic life. Kitchen middens, pottery shards, and remains of wooden structures outline patterns of habitation, labour, and governance. Streets and plazas indicate careful urban planning, suggesting that civic and ceremonial life were closely intertwined. Even as these discoveries clarify aspects of the city, they simultaneously raise questions about the decisions, knowledge, and priorities of the Maya who built and inhabited it. Trade goods and exotic materials found at Tikal reveal a network that spanned hundreds of kilometres. Obsidian from highland Guatemala, jade from distant quarries, and shells from the Gulf Coast testify to exchange, diplomacy, and perhaps ritual tribute. These artifacts indicate that Tikal was far from isolated. It participated in a sophisticated system of economic and cultural connections. Each piece, whether a finely carved jade pendant or an intricately shaped obsidian blade, hints at the wider civilization that pulsed across Mesoamerica and underscores the city's influence and prestige. From the edge of the central acropolis, the surrounding jungle seems to frame each pyramid as part of a deliberate visual hierarchy. Paths, plazas, and plazas' sightlines converge in ways that suggest the city was designed to impress and guide both residents and visitors. The positioning of structures, the varying heights of pyramids, and the placement of ceremonial spaces create a rhythm across the cityscape. Even without written records explaining the intent, the rhythm of construction across the city suggests a vision that extended far beyond what one person could oversee alone. Under the dense canopy and ancient stones, Tikal's secrets lie in wait, echoing the story of a civilization that measured the heavens and disappeared. The Kailasa Temple at Ellora, India. From the base of the cliff, the Kailasa Temple rises like a colossal vision carved from living stone, a monument that seems both impossibly delicate and profoundly massive. The surrounding landscape of the Ellora Caves in Maharashtra frames it in contrast. Jagged cliffs, dry scrub, and scattered boulders make the sudden emergence of this monolithic wonder almost theatrical. Visitors arriving for the first time often pause, struck by the audacity of its scale and the intricacy of its detail. Unlike most structures built upward from foundations, Kailasa was excavated downward, hewn from a single rock to create a temple complex that stretches over 2 acres. The sheer ambition of the project is almost incomprehensible, and every angle invites questions about how human hands accomplished such precision centuries ago. In the 8th century CE, the Rashtrakuta rulers commissioned a work unlike any other in India. King Krishna I is credited with envisioning a temple that would honour Lord Shiva, blending devotion with spectacle. Historical records are sparse, but inscriptions at the site reference grants and labour arrangements, hinting at an organised workforce of artisans, sculptors and labourers. The temple sits within a larger series of rock-cut caves at Ellora, yet it dwarfs its surroundings, as though it were intended to announce the power, faith and ingenuity of its patrons to anyone who approached. Its creation reflects not only religious zeal, but also a society capable of extraordinary coordination and vision. Every pillar, every frieze, seems to have been carved with the precision of a master artisan guided by an invisible blueprint. The temple's walls are covered with bas-reliefs depicting scenes from the Ramayana, Mahabharata, and Puranic stories, each figure frozen mid-motion with astonishing clarity. Columns shaped like elaborately coiled serpents and elephants march across stone surfaces, demonstrating both artistic mastery and symbolic significance. Scholars note that some carvings appear to be aligned to lead the eye from one scene to the next, as if guiding visitors through a narrative encoded in stone. The craftsmanship raises persistent questions. How did artisans maintain proportion and symmetry across such a vast three-dimensional canvas? The monolith was excavated downward, a task that modern engineers struggle to imagine without cranes or pulleys. Unlike traditional construction, where stone blocks are assembled, Kailasa was sculpted from the top down, a subtractive process requiring incredible planning. Archaeological studies suggest that tens of thousands of cubic feet of rock were removed, carefully measured, and chiseled to reveal the intended forms. No definitive records explain the methods, leaving modern observers to hypothesize about simple tools used with extraordinary coordination. Even today, engineers and historians alike marvel at the daring nature of carving a multi-level temple entirely from living rock while maintaining its architectural integrity. The temple's corridors align with celestial axes, as if mapping the heavens onto the rock itself. Certain sanctums face cardinal directions with remarkable precision, and scholars have proposed that sunlight entering the inner shrine at specific times of year illuminates statues in symbolic ways. These alignments suggest that the builders understood astronomical cycles and wove them into the very fabric of the temple. Observing the structure at sunrise or sunset, one can see how light and shadow interact with sculpted forms, creating fleeting moments that might have been central to rituals or ceremonial timing. Kailasa's geometry reveals a worldview where cosmic order and human devotion are inseparable. Walking along the carved stairways, one hears the faint echoes of footsteps that may have crossed these stones over 1,000 years ago. The air inside the temple is cool, carrying whispers of stone on stone, of hands that chipped and polished each surface. Courtyards open unexpectedly into towering halls, revealing massive lingams, shrines, and niches filled with figures whose expressions are at once serene and commanding. Even the smallest carved details, like the jewellery of a goddess or the folds of a warrior's garment, suggest a level of observation and care that surpasses ordinary craftsmanship. Visitors are often struck by a sense of reverence, a feeling that every inch of stone embodies centuries of devotion and labour. Hidden within the temple's complex are narrow passageways and chambers whose purpose remains partly mysterious. Some rooms contain altars, others appear as storage spaces for offerings, yet many hold no clear function at all. The ceiling of one chamber bears a delicate geometric pattern, carved with such precision that it seems almost ritualistic, as though the design itself held spiritual meaning. Archaeologists speculate about these spaces, debating whether they were used for meditation, secret rites, or symbolic storytelling. Regardless, they emphasize the layered intention behind Kailasa's design: practical, ceremonial, and symbolic needs intertwined in ways that continue to puzzle researchers. Excavated reliefs along the exterior walls depict both human and divine activity, blurring the line between the earthly and celestial. Horses, lions, and mythological beasts seem to leap from the rock, their forms capturing motion and emotion in static stone. Scholars studying the carvings note subtle cues suggesting narrative sequences or ceremonial order, implying that the temple itself was meant to guide observers through moral, spiritual, and cosmic lessons. The complexity and coherence of these narratives indicate an extraordinary planning process, one that required not only technical skill, but also cultural and religious insight. As one ascends toward the main sanctum, the scale of Kailasa becomes even more imposing. Pillars taller than most modern buildings stand without visible joints, and roofs carved from solid rock stretch across halls that feel impossibly open. From above, terraces and balconies reveal views of the surrounding plateau, yet every angle emphasizes the continuity of the stone, a seamless connection between structure and earth. The combination of vertical excavation and horizontal expanses creates a spatial experience that feels both intimate and monumental, as if the temple were a universe in miniature, carved to reflect human devotion and cosmic order simultaneously. Despite centuries of study and admiration, the exact techniques and timeline of construction remain unresolved. Estimates suggest that construction may have taken decades, yet no record confirms the methods, the workforce size, or the sequence of work. Modern experiments using replicas of chisels, hammers, and manpower have recreated small sections but cannot match the speed, precision, or scale achieved by the ancient builders. The mystery endures, a civilization with modest tools accomplishing an architectural feat that continues to inspire awe. Above the inner sanctum, the pinnacle of Kailasa seems almost impossibly carved, a final statement of ambition and devotion. Sculpted statues of deities watch over courtyards, their gazes intentional and commanding. The temple's orientation, carvings, and sheer magnitude reflect a society deeply attuned to both spiritual and material worlds. Standing in its shadow, it is impossible not to wonder how much knowledge has been deliberately hidden within its walls, waiting for those perceptive enough to uncover it. Every angle of the Kailasa temple hints at mastery beyond what history can fully explain, a combination of human ingenuity, devotion, and mystery frozen in stone. Generations of scholars, pilgrims, and travellers have tried to comprehend its scale, purpose, and meaning, yet each visit reveals new details that inspire more questions than answers. The temple remains a testament to a civilization that achieved the extraordinary, leaving a monument that continues to challenge the limits of understanding. Secrets of human skill and sacred devotion lie encoded in each carved corner, waiting silently for those willing to uncover the full story of the stone. Mohenjo-daro, Pakistan. Dust rises from the straight streets of Mohenjo-daro, catching the sunlight that filters weakly through the overcast sky. The city spreads out in carefully measured grids, where compacted bricks mark the foundations of houses, workshops, and public spaces. Though centuries have worn away its edges, the geometric precision of the layout hints at an intelligence and organisation that feels almost modern. Visitors often pause in silence, imagining the footsteps of merchants, artisans, and children echoing faintly along avenues that once thrummed with life. Each line of bricks and each remnant of a wall evokes both admiration and unease. How could such a city arise in 2500 BCE? And why was it abandoned so completely? Clay seals etched with mysterious symbols hint at lives and stories we cannot fully reconstruct. Small figurines of humans and animals, meticulously shaped from terracotta, are scattered across excavated areas, revealing glimpses of daily activity, spiritual practice, and perhaps even play. Many of these artifacts carry marks suggesting trade with distant regions. Shells from the Arabian Sea and stones from far-flung mountains imply networks of exchange that spanned hundreds of miles. Every discovery raises questions. Who created these objects? How were they used? And what secrets do the symbols conceal about a culture that left no written record for us to interpret? The Great Bath, now cracked and empty, once pulsed with communal gatherings and ritual immersion. This massive rectangular structure, lined with finely fitted bricks and surrounded by colonnades, suggests that water held not only practical value but sacred meaning. Archaeologists speculate that the pool was central to purification rites or ceremonies that reinforce social hierarchies, though certainty eludes them. The meticulous construction and waterproofing techniques testify to a mastery of materials and engineering that seems extraordinary for the era, inviting speculation about knowledge now lost. Bricks of uniform size stretch along sun-baked roads, yet no record tells us how this standardization was achieved. Each home, workshop, and wall adheres to a consistent pattern, implying coordinated planning on a scale unusual for ancient settlements. Surveying the city from above, the alignment of streets, drainage channels, and public spaces conveys a sense of deliberate design that marries function and order. Scholars continue to puzzle over whether these standards arose from cultural tradition, centralized authority, or ingenious experimentation, and how this knowledge dissipated with the city's fall. Amid the foundations of the city, water runs through ancient channels, silently bearing witness to knowledge that has faded with time. Covered sewers, manholes, and channels line the roads in parallel patterns, effectively carrying rainwater and waste away from residences. The sophistication is remarkable. Clay bricks are interlocked to prevent leaks, and slopes are carefully calculated to direct flow. Modern engineers marvel at the precision, realizing that even small miscalculations could have led to flooding and disease. The existence of such infrastructure in a civilization millennia older than similar urban designs in Mesopotamia or Egypt raises deep questions about the origins and transmission of technological knowledge. Terracotta figurines frozen in mid-gesture suggest ceremonies, dances, or practices that vanished along with the city. Many depict humans in motion, animals in pairs, or hybrid forms that may have carried symbolic meaning. Some figures bear traces of pigments, implying decoration or ritual use, while others show wear from handling or placement in domestic shrines. Together, these artifacts create a mosaic of a society rich in culture and imagination, yet opaque in meaning. Each piece is a tantalizing clue to practices we can only imagine, hinting at a worldview that merged the mundane and the sacred in ways we cannot fully grasp. Homes arranged around small courtyards indicate a lifestyle of privacy and community, balancing individual family units with collective spaces. Cooking areas, granaries, and workshops suggest a level of domestic organization that blends efficiency with social cohesion. Archaeologists have noted traces of baked goods, pottery fragments, and personal items in these spaces, revealing how people lived and labored day by day. Despite the clarity of the urban design, the abrupt abandonment leaves a haunting question. Why did the streets that once teemed with life fall silent so completely? Granaries and larger public buildings point to centralized planning and resource management that could sustain tens of thousands of residents. Some structures were designed to store surplus grain, while others may have functioned as communal centers or administrative hubs. The careful placement of these buildings, along with water access points and elevated platforms, suggests a sophisticated understanding of both logistics and social control. Every wall, column, and storage chamber bears witness to deliberate foresight, yet the absence of explanatory records makes the reasoning behind these choices elusive. Evidence of artistic expression appears in carved seals, pottery decoration, and sculpted motifs across the city. Patterns of animals, mythological creatures, and abstract geometric shapes are repeated with careful precision, suggesting both aesthetic sensibility and symbolic meaning. These artifacts hint at a shared cultural language, possibly connected to governance, religion, or trade, though their exact interpretation has been lost. The consistency and skill reflected in these designs indicate artisans whose knowledge was cultivated, passed down, and highly valued, raising questions about the social structures that supported such expertise. The sudden abandonment of Mohenjo-daro remains a riddle that has perplexed generations of researchers. Flooding, climate change, or disease may have played a role, yet no definitive evidence explains why a city so meticulously built and maintained would be vacated. Signs of hurried departure are scarce, suggesting that the decline was neither violent nor gradual, but something more enigmatic. This unresolved mystery adds a layer of tension to every excavation and study, as archaeologists trace the outlines of streets and walls, seeking answers that may never arrive. Even as modern scholars probe the city's depths, discoveries continue to emerge from layers of compacted soil. Excavation reveals more about infrastructure, ritual practices, and domestic life, while simultaneously deepening the sense of unknowable aspects. Each artifact or architectural detail offers a glimpse into a culture that valued precision, order, and ritual, yet deliberately left its story incomplete. The interplay of revelation and mystery sustains the city's fascination, drawing researchers and visitors alike to walk the streets and imagine lives long past. Street alignments and the orientation of major structures suggest a knowledge of celestial patterns or seasonal timing, hinting at a civilization attuned to the cycles of nature. Some streets follow precise east-west axes, while major communal buildings align with solstice sunrise or other astronomical markers. These subtle correspondences reveal that urban planning was not purely functional but intertwined with spiritual and temporal awareness, suggesting that the builders harmonized their environment, architecture, and cosmology in a way that still puzzles observers today. Walking over centuries-old bricks, archaeologists feel the sophistication of a people lost to time. Every excavation, every brush of soil against ancient walls, reveals fragments of a people who mastered urban planning, engineering, and artistry in a way unmatched in contemporary societies. Yet with each discovery comes the realization that for every secret uncovered, countless more remain buried, held in silence beneath the plain. Time has buried the echoes of a vanished civilization at Mohenjo-daro, as complete and mysterious as the day they fell silent. Carnac stones, France. Hands dug into the soil as the first light of dawn stretched across the Breton plain, dragging stones from the earth with ropes and raw human strength. No one recorded their names, yet thousands of massive menhirs now rise in silent formation, aligned with a precision that defies the simplicity of Neolithic tools. The ground itself seems to remember the effort, each footprint compressed into the loamy earth like a faint echo of movement that has survived more than 5 millennia. Looking across the rows, it is easy to imagine the builders' rhythm, their communal labour synchronized to some lost understanding of time and purpose. The wind carries the faint scent of salt from the nearby Atlantic, brushing against weathered stones that have stood upright through storms, frost, and centuries of human curiosity. Some stones tilt slightly, others tower in perfect symmetry, forming avenues that stretch as far as the eye can see. Archaeologists have long speculated that the alignment may correspond to celestial events or seasonal markers, yet no definitive proof has emerged. Visitors today feel an uncanny stillness, as though the stones themselves hold knowledge of ceremonies and gatherings long vanished. By the 18th century, local historians had begun to take note of the rows, yet early interpretations were often fanciful. Abbé Leroux, writing in 1710, suggested the stones were druidic remnants, while others imagined battles frozen in time or messages to unseen gods. These accounts, though coloured by imagination, capture the same awe that strikes anyone who walks the Breton fields. The mystery is amplified by the sheer scale, more than 3,000 stones spread across 13 alignments in Carnac, some reaching heights of nearly 20 feet, yet their purpose remains unanswered. The stones themselves are remarkable in their variety. Granite, gneiss and schist were quarried from sites kilometres away, then shaped and moved without the wheel or metal tools. Some monoliths show subtle carvings, shallow cut marks, and faint grooves that suggest ritual significance or symbolic encoding. Even modern engineers struggle to understand the logistics of transport, particularly how entire rows could have been arranged so precisely without instruments of measurement, beyond sightlines and intuition. Among the alignments, the Menhir row is the most imposing, a tightly organised line of menhirs stretching nearly a mile. Walking along it, one notices small variations in spacing, subtle shifts in angle, and the occasional stone that leans ever so slightly. These anomalies suggest intentionality rather than error, implying that the builders may have encoded meaning into patterns we're only beginning to sense. Each stone is both monumental and intimate, an enduring dialogue between human effort and natural landscape. Scattered between the rows are smaller dolmens, tomb-like structures that hint at funerary or ceremonial use. Excavations have revealed bones, pottery fragments, and flint tools, yet no complete understanding of the rituals survives. Radiocarbon dating places much of the construction around 4,500–3,300 BCE. Though continuous additions suggest that Carnac evolved over centuries, a living project shaped by successive generations. This gradual development magnifies the mystery. The site was not a single undertaking, but a multi-century endeavour with a purpose never fully recorded. The landscape itself plays a role in the enigma. Hills, rivers, and distant coasts align with certain rows, hinting at geographical intentionality. Some researchers propose that water sources and natural contours influence placement, while others argue the connections are symbolic, intended to link the earth, sky, and human perception. From the vantage point of the west, where the sun sets over the Atlantic, the stones appear to form deliberate lines pointing toward horizons both literal and metaphysical, as if the builders were speaking to forces beyond their immediate world. Despite centuries of study, no inscriptions clarify the builder's intent, and no contemporary written account exists. Only the arrangement, the subtle carvings, and the sheer audacity of moving and erecting thousands of stones remain. Scholars debate the social organisation required for such an undertaking, coordinating labour, ensuring alignment, and transmitting knowledge across generations without written language. implies a culture of remarkable sophistication and shared vision. The silence of the stones is deliberate, compelling observers to confront their own assumptions about early human ingenuity. Beyond the alignments, the Lepetimenek and Camario rows continue the mystery, each with its own rhythm, height and spacing. Their variation challenges any single theory of use. Some may have marked astronomical events, others served as ceremonial pathways or territorial markers. Attempts to map celestial correlations yield partial results, suggesting that if astronomy played a role, it was only one element of a more complex cultural statement. The stones seem to offer guidance without explanation, structure without interpretation, a paradox that has fascinated generations. Archaeological techniques have advanced, employing ground-penetrating radar and 3D modelling, yet each discovery often raises more questions than it answers. Buried stones, subtle depressions, and signs of erosion hint at vanished features, additional alignments, or ritual spaces now lost to time. Even the alignment of the rows is imperfect by modern standards, but these imperfections may have held significance for the people of Carnac, embedding meaning into subtle deviations rather than enforcing geometric uniformity. The site resists finality, keeping its knowledge just beyond grasp. Some theories suggest that Carnac served as a spiritual centre, uniting disparate communities through shared construction and ritual. Evidence of nearby settlements and quarries supports the notion that large populations could sustain such a monumental project. Yet no written guidance survives, and the coordination required remains astonishing. This raises questions about memory, oral tradition, and the mechanisms by which prehistoric societies could organise labour on such a scale while preserving cultural intent over centuries. Artefacts uncovered between stones, beads, polished axes and flint knives imply offerings or dedications, hinting at human interaction with the monoliths beyond mere construction. The placement of these items, sometimes beneath standing stones or along their bases, suggests a layering of symbolic meaning over physical achievement. Each object deepens the narrative, indicating a world where stone, human effort, and ritual converged in ways modern observers can only partially reconstruct. From a distance, the alignments of Carnac evoke both awe and a subtle unease. The sheer repetition of vertical forms against the horizon creates a rhythm that is both hypnotic and disorienting. Walking through the rows, one senses a deliberate choreography, a silent guidance through space and time that frames human experience within a monumental scale. There is no centre, no focal point, yet each stone appears deliberate, as if part of a story intentionally left unfinished. Later generations of locals incorporated the site into their own myths, describing the stones as petrified soldiers or giants turned to rock. These legends, though fanciful, preserve a cultural memory of the extraordinary effort and perhaps echo fragments of the original purpose. The persistence of storytelling reinforces the idea that Carnac's power is not just physical but symbolic, a bridge between tangible labour and intangible meaning that transcends time. Modern visitors are drawn to the site not only by historical curiosity, but also by the quiet potency of the landscape. Photographers, archaeologists, and casual travellers alike report a peculiar sensation, a subtle energy or resonance that seems to emanate from the stones themselves. Whether psychological or rooted in some forgotten ritual practice, this perception underscores the enduring pull of Carnac, ensuring that the site continues to fascinate and inspire speculation even in the absence of definitive answers. The endurance of the stones is a testament to human persistence, ingenuity, and imagination. Each monolith carries the weight of centuries and yet stands upright, resilient to erosion and time, as if guarding secrets known only to those who set them in place. Modern attempts to replicate their construction reveal the limits of contemporary understanding, reinforcing the impression that Carnac embodies knowledge deliberately hidden from all who follow. One solitary row curves slightly off the main axis, its slight deviation noticeable only to those who study the alignments closely. This subtle difference, unexplained by conventional reasoning, hints at intentional coding, an unspoken message woven into the placement of stone. Visitors pause before it, sensing the deliberate act and wondering what it might signify to the builders who walked this land thousands of years ago. Under the weight of millennia, across open fields, the silent story of Carnac endures, told only through stone. Chavin de Huantar, Peru. The first wind of dawn carries the cold scent of highland rivers, threading through the deep valley where Chavin de Huantar sits. A sight both imposing and enigmatic. Mist clings to the surrounding Andean slopes, curling around terraces and plazas that speak to careful planning and ritual intent. The confluence of the Mosna and Wachexa rivers seems more than coincidental, their waters converging beneath the temple's foundations as if nature itself were part of the design. Stepping into the main plaza, terraces rise like jagged teeth against the sky, their stone edges sharply carved yet weathered by centuries. Each level hints at duality, practical drainage channels for torrential rains and ceremonial steps leading towards sacred platforms. Archaeologists note that these terraces required not only immense labour, but an understanding of water management and soil stabilisation, which would have been critical in a region prone to landslides and floods. The plazas themselves suggest public gatherings, yet the symmetry and alignments indicate that these were far from ordinary events, likely orchestrated around celestial or ritual observances. A narrow channel plunges into darkness, where water once carved invisible paths beneath stone floors, and here the temple's subterranean labyrinth begins to reveal its secrets. The galleries and tunnels, constructed with remarkable precision, form a complex drainage system that carries not only water, but echoes of the world above. Researchers have discovered that some passages amplify sound, producing low hums when air and water move through them, a phenomenon that may have been used during ceremonies to awe participants and enhance the perception of divine presence. The engineering knowledge required for this interplay of acoustics and water remains one of Chavin's greatest enigmas. The lantern emerges from the shadows, carved with a gaze that seems to pierce centuries, a jaguar-headed deity that dominates the inner sanctum. Its intricate design combines feline, human and avian features, a symbolic blend that suggests both authority and transformation. The monument's proportions and placement imply deliberate interaction, as if the architecture itself were an instrument of ritualized experience, designed to convey knowledge and power beyond mere stone. A subtle resonance vibrates through the tunnels, a tone that can only be felt, not heard, hinting at ceremonies that relied on both sound and perception. Anthropologists propose that priests may have utilized these acoustics to project chants instruments or water sounds that resonated through the temple, creating an immersive spiritual environment. This blending of architecture and sensory manipulation reflects an understanding of human perception rarely documented in contemporary civilizations of the era, suggesting that the Chavin culture possessed both technological and symbolic sophistication. Why was the temple built at the confluence of two rivers rather than atop the valley's peaks remains a question that continues to intrigue researchers. The positioning may have had symbolic significance, connecting the living landscape with the spiritual underworld beneath. This choice of location, blending natural and constructed features, underscores the civilization's complex worldview, in which architecture and environment were inseparably intertwined. Trade routes, agricultural terraces, and ceremonial spaces hint at a civilization both complex and deliberate, one that influenced much of the Andean region during the first millennium BCE. Obsidian, spondylus shells, and other exotic materials have been uncovered, revealing long-distance exchange networks that attest to social stratification and specialized craft production. Carved stone reliefs along walls and stairways depict jaguars, snakes, and anthropomorphic figures, each combining human and animal characteristics in a seamless narrative of transformation. The artistry is precise and abstract, intended to communicate ideas beyond words, perhaps lessons about cosmology, power, and the cycles of life and death. From the small plazas and surrounding structures, excavations reveal offerings, ritual feasting, and specialized craft areas, pointing to a social order that touched both religious and everyday life. Pottery, tools, and ceremonial objects indicate that priests, artisans, and common participants each played a role in maintaining the spiritual and civic life of Chavin. These findings suggest that the temple was not an isolated sacred site, but a dynamic center that coordinated social, religious, and possibly political activity in an integrated system. In the inner galleries, light filters through narrow openings, illuminating patterns in the stone that align with the sun at solstice and equinox. These alignments may have guided ritual timing or conveyed a cosmological narrative, integrating celestial observation into the sacred architecture. The precision of these placements demonstrates careful calculation, a marriage of astronomical knowledge and artistic vision rarely matched in contemporary civilizations. Even with centuries of study, the subterranean channels continue to baffle researchers. The design allows water to flow through without damaging the carvings above, and some chambers create unique acoustic effects, amplifying vibrations that may have contributed to the spiritual experience. The engineering sophistication and symbolic complexity suggest that Chavin priests had an integrated understanding of environment, materials, and perception, using architecture as a conduit for both divine and human knowledge. A sudden shift in the valley's light transforms the temple's appearance, shadows highlighting reliefs and angles that might otherwise be overlooked. This interplay of illumination may have been used intentionally, allowing ceremonies to interact dynamically with natural light throughout the day. Burials and offerings discovered within peripheral mounds reveal further dimensions of belief, as human and animal remains were positioned to align with ceremonial pathways and architectural features. These deposits hint at a worldview in which the living and dead, the natural and spiritual, were carefully orchestrated within a structured environment. Each placement, each artifact, speaks to ritual precision that is now largely opaque to modern understanding, leaving questions about the intersection of power, faith, and social structure. Even as modern archaeologists and visitors try to reconstruct the sensory and ceremonial functions of Chavin de Huantar, the full scope of its purpose remains just out of reach. The integration of water, sound, light and stone creates an experience that is more than architecture, more than art. It is a living encounter designed to engage the mind and body simultaneously. Every discovery reinforces both awe and bewilderment, a reminder that much of the civilization's knowledge was intentionally ephemeral, encoded in experience rather than text. The plazas conceal a purpose in stone, water and channel, understood only by the hands that first brought them to life. Callanish Stone Circle, Scotland. The Callanish Stone Circle rises from the rolling grasslands of the Isle of Lewis, its upright stones standing in quiet formation for thousands of years. From a distance, the circle appears simple, yet closer inspection reveals a complex arrangement of smaller circles, avenues, and solitary stones that stretch across the landscape. Each stone, weathered and worn, hints at careful placement and a purpose that remains largely unknown. The environment around the Callanish Stone Circle, with low hills and open sky, accentuates its presence, emphasizing the scale and thought behind its construction. Walking among the stones, the texture of the ancient rock becomes apparent. Lichen spreads across their surfaces, softening sharp edges, while the damp air carries the faint scent of peat from nearby moors. Archaeologists have noted that some stones align with prominent points on the horizon, such as distant hills and mountain ridges. These alignments suggest a sophisticated awareness of both geography and the movements of the sun and moon, though the exact intent remains uncertain. Historical accounts from 18th and 19th century travellers describe the Callanish Stone Circle as a place of awe and mystery. Antiquarians such as Sir Walter Scott and others recorded the site, often emphasising its unusual symmetry and the questions it raised about prehistoric knowledge. They marvelled at the scale of labour required to erect the stones, many weighing several tons, without the aid of metal tools or written plans. The layout of the stones is more intricate than a single circle might suggest. A central ring is surrounded by 5 smaller satellite circles, connected by stone avenues that extend outward. The precise measurements and spacing between stones indicate intentional design rather than random placement. Some researchers believe the Callanish Stone Circle functioned as a calendar, with shadows cast by the stones marking solstices, equinoxes, and other significant seasonal events. Others point to ceremonial possibilities, noting that the avenues may have guided processions or gatherings, linking natural observation with cultural practice. Archaeological surveys around the Callanish Stone Circle have uncovered burial sites and remnants of dwellings, suggesting that the area was more than a standalone monument. These findings indicate a broader ceremonial landscape, where the stones acted as a focal point within a network of sacred and practical spaces. Artifacts such as pottery fragments and stone tools hint at long-term occupation and ritual use, although precise dating remains challenging. The Callanish Stone Circle sits at the heart of this ancient activity, emphasizing its significance within the broader context of Neolithic life on the Isle of Lewis. Measurements of the stones reveal subtle irregularities that may have been intentional. Variations in height, spacing, and orientation appear to correspond with astronomical events rather than practical construction limits. Scholars have proposed that the builders of the Callanish stone circle incorporated an early understanding of solar and lunar cycles, tracking movements over months and years. Each stone seems to communicate a fragment of knowledge that is no longer fully accessible to contemporary observers. Excavations have also revealed evidence of stone shaping and foundation preparation at the Callanish stone circle. The bases of many stones show signs of careful levelling, with pits dug to secure the monoliths. The effort required suggests a coordinated workforce and shared purpose. There is little evidence of nearby quarries, implying that stones were transported over distances with considerable effort. The scale of this operation points to the social organisation and technical skill of the builders. Over centuries, the surrounding landscape has shifted due to peat accumulation and human activity, yet the Callanish stone circle retains its original geometry remarkably well. LIDAR and aerial surveys have helped researchers map the full extent of the avenues and satellite circles, revealing a level of planning that surpasses earlier estimates. These surveys show that the site was likely intended to be viewed from above, whether to observe the sky, coordinate gatherings, or signal territorial presence. The stone's endurance serves as a reminder of both their material strength and the enduring human fascination with marking time and space. Local folklore adds another layer to the Callanish stone circle's history. Stories passed through generations speak of giants who raised the stones, or rituals conducted to honour ancestors in the natural world. While modern scholars approach these tales with caution, they offer insight into how the circle was perceived and remembered by communities over time. The blending of oral tradition with physical evidence enhances the mystery, suggesting that the Callanish stone circle's significance was as much symbolic as it was functional. Artefacts recovered near the site include stone axes, flint tools, and occasional ceramics, indicating that people not only visited but lived nearby for extended periods. These items provide glimpses into daily life as well as ceremonial activity, though they do not fully explain the purpose of the stones themselves. The Callanish stone circle remains an enigmatic centerpiece, linking human activity, astronomical observation, and ritual practice in ways that continue to challenge researchers. Recent studies have explored acoustic properties within the circle. The arrangement of stones may have amplified sound, creating resonances during gatherings or ceremonies. This possibility aligns with other prehistoric sites in Europe where acoustic effects appear to have been intentionally designed. At the Callanish stone circle, such effects could have enhanced chants, drumming, or other ritual activity, suggesting a multisensory experience that went beyond visual alignment. Seasonal observations at the Callanish stone circle continue to reveal subtle alignments. During the winter solstice, for instance, sunlight passes between specific monoliths, casting shadows that fall in precise patterns across the ground. These phenomena suggest that the builders possessed knowledge of solar paths and incorporated them into the design. Yet the significance of these alignments, whether for agriculture, ritual, or symbolic meaning, remains a matter of interpretation. Visitors today experience the site with a combination of awe and curiosity. The Callanish stone circle maintains a quiet authority, neither imposing nor decorative, but undeniably purposeful. Every observation raises further questions. How were the stones transported? Why were they placed in these precise locations? And what did the builders hope to communicate across centuries? Even after extensive study, the Callanish stone circle defies complete understanding. Its scale, orientation, and relation to the surrounding landscape indicates sophisticated planning and cultural significance. Yet much about the site remains unresolved, from the practical methods of construction to the deeper meanings encoded in its layout. Each stone, weathered but steadfast, contributes to a narrative that is partially visible, partially hidden, inviting speculation and continued investigation. Quietly standing through the ages, the Callanish stone circle remains both a landmark and a mystery, offering glimpses of knowledge while guarding its deepest secrets. Tiwanaku, Bolivia. Early Spanish chroniclers were intrigued by Tiwanaku, reporting vast stone structures and intricately carved monuments that seemed impossible for the indigenous populations of the time to have built. They described massive gateways and sculptures adorned with figures that combined human and animal traits, leaving observers puzzled over the civilization's origins and technological skill. These accounts, recorded in the 16th and 17th centuries, remain some of the first written references to a site that has confounded historians and archaeologists for generations. At the Gateway of the Sun, excavations have uncovered a dense network of stone blocks, each carved with geometric precision and fitted perfectly without mortar. Researchers note the sheer size of many megaliths, some weighing over 10 tons, and the complexity of interlocking joints that have endured centuries of weathering. The alignment of the gateway suggests a deliberate connection with solar patterns, yet the methods used to carve, transport and position these stones remain a matter of debate among experts. Ceremonial platforms rise across the central plaza, hinting at gatherings of priests, rulers and citizens. Their layout suggests carefully planned social and religious practices, with spaces designed to accommodate processions and public rites. The platform's surfaces are etched with iconography depicting mythological figures, deities and symbolic animals, suggesting a culture that wove its spiritual beliefs into every stone. Yet without written records, the precise meaning of these carvings continues to elude modern understanding. The enormous megaliths of Kalasasaya and Akapana pyramids pose profound questions about ancient engineering. Archaeologists have examined traces of channels and scaffolding techniques, but the exact tools and strategies used to maneuver stones that weigh multiple tons remain unknown. Some researchers hypothesize the use of inclined planes or water-assisted transport, yet no definitive evidence confirms these theories. Each discovery deepens the sense that the builders possessed advanced knowledge of mechanics and labour organisation that has been lost to time. New studies of the underground galleries beneath Akapana reveal chambers cut with meticulous precision, some extending over 20 metres below the surface. The walls of these tunnels are marked with smooth grooves and channels whose purpose is still debated, possibly for water management, ritual use, or structural stability. The careful placement of these galleries suggests planning far beyond simple construction, indicating a knowledge of geology and engineering that continues to baffle researchers. Carved figures and sculpted idols suggest Tiwanaku held spiritual and political significance across the Andes. The monolithic Ponce sculpture, with its detailed headdress and geometric motifs, exemplifies an artistic style that combines precision with symbolic complexity. These artifacts indicate trade and cultural exchange, as similar motifs have been found hundreds of miles away, pointing to a network of influence and communication that connected distant communities. Raised agricultural fields surrounding the ceremonial centre reveal a society skilled in land management and water control. Known as suka kolas, these elevated platforms optimize drainage and soil fertility, allowing crops to thrive in a challenging high-altitude environment. The combination of advanced farming techniques and monumental architecture suggests Tiwanaku integrated practical knowledge with ceremonial and societal priorities, reflecting a civilization that balanced survival with cultural expression. The pottery shards and obsidian tools found near Tiwanaku hint at trade networks that spanned from the highlands to remote lowland areas. Some items bear designs and material sources hundreds of kilometers away, implying not only commerce but also the sharing of ideas and religious practices. The distribution of these artifacts underscores the city's role as a cultural and economic hub, reinforcing its importance well beyond its immediate surroundings. Although Tiwanaku exhibits remarkable sophistication, the reasons for its decline continue to elude understanding. Archaeologists propose environmental changes, such as fluctuating lake levels and climate shifts, as potential factors, while others point to social upheaval or external pressures. Excavations uncover abandoned homes and ceremonial spaces frozen in place, suggesting a sudden departure or population collapse. The abruptness of the decline leaves questions about what forces could dismantle a civilization so seemingly secure and accomplished. Modern research continues to uncover new insights and unanswered questions. Ground-penetrating radar has revealed subsurface structures beneath the main plazas, while detailed mapping of stone alignments points to a sophisticated understanding of astronomy. These findings challenge assumptions about the society's technological capabilities and ritual practices, offering tantalizing clues while simultaneously emphasizing the site's enduring enigmas. Even today, Tiwanaku preserves a quiet, unyielding puzzle, standing as a testament to human ingenuity and the mysteries that civilizations can leave behind.